All right, we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a good week here. Sorry I missed the Wednesday live, but happy to see many of you here for the Sunday one. Hope you're doing well, all things considered here in the world. But anyway, so like all the other usual live streams, I'm going to try and go for about 2 hours. My voice is still a little weird. I swear it's like these, I'm still working through this new sickness I had here this week, just another cold or whatever. So voice might be a little raspy, but hopefully we'll be able to go the full 2 hours. We'll see. But like usual, I'll give priority answering that anyone does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description. And let me see here. So I said we have Brian, Vishal, Danny, and Theodore, and B. Mitchell, and Tony, and Luke. And yeah, so thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. So I see, starting right off here, Brian says, I went to a car show yesterday on Saturday, saw all kinds of classic cars. That's fun. Glad to see that they're popping out here. Haven't seen really any classics around here too much yet, but yeah, glad that they're starting to get out there and enjoy their driving season here. And Vishal is back in DFW after my visit home to North Carolina for the week. We ended up getting a new car while I was there, a 26 Sportage Hybrid EX in Heritage Blue. Very nice. Loving it so far. Hybrid is so smooth and refined. Yeah, I love that they do that same blue color that Toyota does pretty much. And congrats on the new car there for the family. And I hope it treats them well. And yeah, I'm guessing. So did you drive it back to? I guess you probably were still in North, or they were still in North Carolina, right? And you're I think you're on there in Texas. So I'm guessing you didn't road trip it back to Texas. But that's awesome though. Yeah, I'm curious to hear how it goes for them, and I hope it's a great experience. And sorry, I'm gonna just tweak this because I think this is slightly off. Still fine tuning my camera mounting here, but anyway, also Michelle says great gas saver to have alongside the TX that takes premium. Oh, I bet that is nice for sure. Yeah. And let me see. Danny says, hello. The Bolt rolled over 79,000 miles this week. My rear spot at a park near the waterfront. Someone with their 2004 Honda CRV was having a picnic with a CRV picnic table. Really? They had their dog with them as well. That's fun. Man, yeah, that was a cool accessory that, yeah, I guess not that many people probably know about, but man, you are really good at these obscure spots and crazy things like that. That's, yeah, you're probably the only person on planet Earth today that could say they saw that and actually recognize it. Obviously, other people probably drove past them and had no idea that it was a CRV picnic table there that those came with. That's fun. It also says, also, I have some very exciting news. My parents are giving me the Bolt as their gift to me for graduating high school. That's awesome. They said the Bolt is the perfect size for me, and I'll probably get couple years out of it when I'm commuting back to college in it. That's awesome. It does about 220 to 240 miles per charge. It did about 260 to 270 new. Then again, it'll probably go up when the weather starts to warm up now. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, and it all comes down to wind resistance. The denser, colder air also hurts that range a good bit, and so even just that lighter air, being able to push through it easier, is going to give you certainly some better range there. So I'm not sure where you plan to go to college. I don't know if you said it before or not, but hopefully not too far. You don't have to do too many charge stops there, but if you plan your stops, not a big deal either. And Theodore says, just saw a black GTR and oh my god, it's so beautiful. Nice. I do love a good GTR. I can't remember. I was doing some research for something this week. Unfortunately, it's not for an R34 GTR review, but I got down the rabbit hole of R34 GTRs and just like, I'm wondering how much these go for these days, and just looking around, and man, they are expensive, as you all would expect. But yeah, it's like a lot more than an R35. I love the R34s, and they're iconic. But I don't know. I'm curious what you guys would do if for basically the same money, like a pristine, brand new, pretty much R35 GTRs, the kind of money people are paying for R34 GTRs with like 40 to 70,000 miles on them. I mean, some of them are pretty nice, like V-Spec ones. Even one is like a V-Spec NUR. But like, I, I probably would go R35 if it were me, just because it's still an amazing car, and also left-hand drive makes things a little easier, safer, better tech, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was just crazy that they are holding strong no matter what. It's wild. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, Danny, maybe your folks are giving you a subtle hint, time to bolt. Maybe. That's a good one. And Tony says, hey, everyone, saw a sweet 90s Saleen Mustang in white with white wheels. Nice. I had had a poster of that car on my wall as a kid. It was one of the few other Mustangs on the road today. Nice. Yeah, that has got to be a rare spot, though. And cool to see that someone had one of those out and about, too. And let me see here. B. Mitchell says the cars of summer are starting to surface up here. Most interesting one so far was a 66 or 67 Pontiac Le Mans Sprint 6 convertible. Nice. That's a fun one. And Luke says, I've been itching for a manual Challenger SRT or a Mustang lately, but it's not a good time to buy something else. Maybe once I get the motorcycle out, that will scratch the itch a little. Oh, I'm sure it will. I was just talking to someone just yesterday, actually, who they have a Mustang Mach 1, a 23, but they also have a bike, and they're like, man, like the first time they rode the bike, they're like, how is this legal? This is so much fun and like so much more engaging with, leaning and, into the corners and just all the extra engagement you get on a bike. It does seem like that would scratch the itch just fine for you there, Luke. And so I hope you enjoy that soon. But Mustangs and Challengers are fun too. And Danny says, my interesting spot was a 1980 Ford Thunderbird, aka the Boxbird. It was a weird color combo, black over burgundy, red interior. Nice. Yeah, there's some strange ones out there. I mean, and I last year in the junkyard spotted those really odd ones where there was like the Thunderbird. There was the turbo. It was a turbo 4 Thunderbird, yeah, that I spotted in the junkyard. And there was also, I think it was the diesel Lincoln version of that generation Thunderbird. There's some cool oddball versions of that. But I feel like there was something else about that Thunderbird that was strange, but I can't remember what it was. Anyway, you can go back and watch the junkyard stuff. I did a short on it too. It'd be easier to find than digging through the hours of junkyard footage I posted. But anyway, yeah, those are fun. I'd love to try one someday. And Danny said he got the joke. And Fook says best hybrid below 30 grand. I mean, again, best is relative. It is subjective. But in my opinion, if it were my $30,000 with my own biases, my own preferences, and what I would be looking for to qualify as a best hybrid, I mean, the way I would probably go would be a lightly used current gen Prius. I love the current gen Prius because it's not a bore to drive. It's actually like Civic Si power levels, and you get 50 mpg. And it looks cool, in my opinion. Basically, you have a 4-door Prelude at this point. The way they copied the styling on the Prelude, that Honda just, I guess, didn't have an original thought there. They decided, hey, Toyota's doing some good stuff. Let's do that. But that's probably the way I would go. And especially with gas prices, if you can plug in, maybe even spend a couple grand more for the Prime version. I loved the Prime because it's even more power, and also it's probably an impossible option to find. But the press car I had the solar roof, which that was super cool to me, because especially if you are someone who is not able to plug in and charge every day, that if you see a lot of sunlight, it's ideal, because even just that thing sitting in my driveway all day, I would come out and I'd have like 4 miles of range after it baking in the sun all day. Now, 4 miles of range, again, not a whole lot, but then after that, it's a regular hybrid. And yes, it's a little less efficient than the regular Prius, but to me, that was super cool that I am literally getting energy from the sun. I'm not paying for it. I'm not even have to plug in for it, and I'm getting actual electric driving. So that, I mean, I really love the new Prius. Now it's not for everyone. Again, it has a smaller back seat than some of the, competitors. Cargo space isn't as good. So, I mean, if you're going for a really good all-around hybrid, you can probably get a used current gen Civic hybrid. I don't know how much they've depreciated, but considering they were what, like 32 new, I would hope that there's some under 30 at this point. Because they've been around what now? Almost 2 years. Yeah, right. So I mean, it'd probably be one of those two would be the way I would go if you want the most practicality. Civic hybrid hatch would probably be the move. Because you're still getting 50 mpg. Now, there's obviously ways to get better, and if you're looking for the best value and you don't care about the fun or the handling or the interior and things like that, I mean, I think a launcher hybrid makes a lot of sense because it depreciates super fast, yet the efficiency is almost as good as the Corolla hybrid. And you get the 10-year, regular warranty, plus you get the battery warranty, which I think is 150,000 miles on most of these EVs. So long warranty, coverage there. And I've actually been seeing more hybrid Elantras popping up, and also Elantras in general. I don't know what's going on around me, but like my funny spots here this week, I've seen like more and more Elantra ends every single passing week. It would be like, oh, like I see an Elantra end every other week. And then in the past couple of months, it's like I see an Elantra end every week. And now it's getting to the point where I'm seeing Elantra ends like almost every day and multiple Elantra ends, like not just the same, like, one driver. I've seen blue, I've seen black, I've seen white, I've seen gray. There's a bunch of them all popping up now. I mean, I've sung the Elantra ends praises for a long time. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of it. And, I think it's a really good value. And the car sells itself. It's 35 grand for, pretty close to the same performance as a lot of these other, much more expensive things like Civic Type R and stuff. So like, I don't, it's not like it's a car that shouldn't be selling better than it is, but like, I'm just like, man, like I'm seeing Elantra ends everywhere. But anyway, so like if you're looking for the best value, I think, going for the Koreans, they do really, still a pretty good hybrid system. But again, everyone still doesn't value them like they value the Toyotas and the Hondas. So you get a really good used bargain there. Now, if we're talking new, if we're really going to, overanalyze this from every possible angle, new hybrid under 30, because I don't know if you can get a base. If you can get a base Prius for under 30, I'd go for that, but that might not be, I don't exactly recall where they start. They might start just over 30 with Destination now. But like, and I don't think you can get a Civic hybrid under 30 new. If you can, one of those options that you're right around 30. So maybe I'd, break the rule slightly and go tiny bit over or something. But those are where I would land. I mean, Corolla's fine. It's just slow. It's really slow and just not as fun. I mean, handling's fine, but there's all these better options. I'd go Prius or Civic hybrid. Those are still the top two in my mind. Obviously, lots of other stuff. And if you want, crossovers, there's stuff for that. There's all kinds of good choices, and I've reviewed most of them. So, if you are actually shopping for that, again, just type hybrid. I actually think I have a hybrid playlist because I've segmented all the reviews out into playlists. I've gone pretty far back. I haven't, done all of my nearly 1,000 reviews now, but, I've packaged up a lot of them into playlists, and I believe there's a hybrid playlist. Now it's going to be stuff over 32, but you can kind of scroll through that hybrid playlist to get an easy condensed view of, okay, here's the hybrids Matt's reviewed in the past few years. Take your pick of the ones that might seem interesting to you if you are actually shopping. And Will, thanks for stopping by. And Luke says, funny enough, I like the new Outback styling better in person versus photos. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I will say, I don't love the styling still, but it doesn't offend me as much as it did when I first saw it, which is oftentimes the way it goes for Subarus. I guess we've all just kind of, we kind of grown callous to, okay, it's going to be hideous. And then we just are like, whatever, and shrug it off. Like even the WRX, I mean, I actually like the front end of it. I mean, you can watch my initial review back in 2021. I said, I think the front end looks great. It's just the back end that sucks. And I still don't love the back end, but at this point I'm like, whatever. There's no fight left in me anymore. There's bigger things to be upset about than, getting pissed off about the rear bumper of a WRX. I still think it's going to age terribly, and that black plastic's going to, turn silvery white in 10 or 15 years and just look completely trashed. But, whatever, you put a body kit on it or something. It's still a good car. It's just unfortunate. But same thing with Outback, I don't hate them as much as I did. I still think that the Wilderness version is so hideous. That version hasn't gotten any better for me. I will actually have a Wilderness press car here in about a month and a half or so, I think. Actually, maybe it's more like, yeah, about a month or so. So I'll be covering the Wilderness version, and you'll hear me. I'll probably do a little riff on the the Wilderness styling, but that one hasn't gotten any better. I mean, certain colors make some of the styling elements a little less polarizing and blend in a little bit more, but it's still not great. And there's so many good looking cars these days too. It's like it's a shame that Subaru can't just give it the program and make something that looks nice. But hey, they're laughing all the way to the bank. It's working for them. Aside from them having terrible sales here the past couple of months, they're not having a good 2026. Could be their worst year in a long time, depending on how the rest of this year goes. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe the styling's finally catching up to them. I don't know. And V Mitchell says, need another roll of duct tape for the camera mount. No, I think I'm good. I think I've figured out how to stabilize it a little bit with more jerry rigging here. So hopefully we're good. It was just that it's on the MagSafe mount still. And so just, since it's not a fixed angle, just kind of sliding that a little bit there. So it's a little bit better. But Corvette says, my dad has taken a 4.5-hour road trip from where we live to Hilton Head Island in his 2025 BMW iX xDrive 50, and he has an NACS adapter for us. So we can go to the Tesla Supercharger. Nice. Well, I hope the road trip's gone well for him, and hope he's adapting to the EV life there well with that. And hope you guys have a great time in Hilton Head too. And Michelle says the table in those early CRVs have a cult following. Gen 1 and 2 owners really swear by them just for the table. Wow, that's funny. I didn't know that was the case. And also Fook and Raphael, thank you so much for your special messages there. So Fook, thanks for being a member for 34 months now. He says, I think I missed the boat on cheap EVs. I'm now looking at plugins, but none are cheap enough compared to the regular hybrids to make sense. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, as far as cheap EVs, I mean, I don't know, maybe around you, they've shot up already. I'm not sure where you're located. I know probably like California and stuff, it might be hard to get a cheap EV now because everyone's probably just sprinting to them with, $5 plus gas prices out there. But I mean, I just saw something this week though, like you can still get Mach-E's for like mid-20s, which again, our car was 50 grand in 2022. And the fact that thing, we traded it in for 28 and a half. And I think it's sold for right around there. And I mean, ours was a rare spec. Like you usually don't see the light colored interiors that we had. That was a special order thing that we did. But so ours was a little bit of a premium, but like average is like 25 typically, even with like ours had like 22,000 miles or something on it, I think. So like, it's a lot of car. I think there are still cheap EVs out there. Maybe just stuff that you need for your requirements for your next car or whatever. Maybe it just doesn't meet that stuff, but like there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, I was even looking like Ioniq 5s and Ioniq 6s. I mean, they still have that ICCU issue that I don't love. It seems like there's actually some real like class action lawsuits now happening to really try and get Hyundai to move on that. I'm not sure why they haven't done a proper fix still for that yet, but like if that doesn't bother you, like I mean, those are now under $20,000. I mean, they look really cool still. We're talking about a car that's like 2 or 3 years old. That was 40 grand plus new, and it's now 20. It's just like the stuff. These are the prices we're used to seeing for stuff that's like 5 to 7 or 8 years old, and we're talking gas stuff. And the EVs, we're talking about like 2023s, like or 2022s, and it's crazy, the dirt cheap prices. So I think there are a lot. If you need help tracking some stuff down, I'm more than happy to help if there's some that you're interested in. But yeah, they should be out there. And if you really want to, again, I don't know what your requirements are, but like even the Fiat 500e that I have, again, a 2024, because that's the first year they brought them here. 2024 is like, there's been cars like mine with like 3,000 miles on them that are like 16 to 17 grand already. Obviously that's 140 miles of range, not going to work for a lot of people. But if you're just looking for a cheap commuter to save you on gas for your 30 mile or 40 mile round trip commute, It can do that all day, every day, no problem. You plug it into the wall at night, no special charger needed, and you're ready to go the next day. And it costs you a couple of bucks to charge it up. I mean, it's just such good savings if you're willing to deal with that. But it's been great. I absolutely love been running around with it a bunch here recently. And Raphael, thank you so much for super chat. Though he says, "What do you think of the Michelin Primacy tires? They're not liked, but I'm up for new tires, and they weren't bad." So Primacies, it depends on the application. So, like the Primacy is actually what they use on the base BRZ for the second generation here, and like my new BRZ back in 2013, the 2013 model, that had Michelin Primacy tires on it, and for that, it was like a low grip hybrid kind of tire that they put on there to make it more tail happy and all that. And it was great for that. And even I've said this in my BRZ and 86 reviews. If I were to buy a new one today, I would buy a base one to get those tires because it gives you more tail happiness than the super sticky Michelin, Pilot also, or it's a regular Pilot, Pilot Sport 4, I think is what you get on the BRZ and G86. So like, I mean, it's great to have the grip. And if you're someone who doesn't like the tail happy antics and you want to just have a complete grip monster, knock yourself out with the Pilot Sports. But like the Primacy is the more fun tire for that car, in my opinion. If your idea of fun is silly fun and not like, oh, I'm gonna get the fastest lap time kind of fun, which to me isn't that fun all the time. But anyway, so in that kind of instance, great. Now Primacies, it's a pricey tire typically. So if you're getting a good deal on them, then maybe it's a pretty good value. But Michelins are always some of the priciest ones. I think Primacies are one of the better Michelins. There are some Michelins that can get a little noisy later on in life, but I mean, I basically burned through those Primacy tires on the BRZ, and I mean, with that car, it was so loud that I had other things that were competing for, abusing my eardrums more so than the tire noise. But like, I think actually even the Lyric right now has a Michelin. I think it's a Primacy. I think it's the like EV or Eco blend of the Primacy that we have on the Lyric. It's a good tire, still a good amount of grip. I mean, side note, I'm so impressed that Lyric. We were in a hurry a couple weeks ago. I was scooting in the Lyric, and that thing, it keeps up because those tires are massive. They're 265s. And that thing just like, and the wheels are huge. It's like you're driving a Hot Wheels car, like oversized wheels on this thing and the low center of gravity. I mean, I was like really impressed the kind of cornering I was able to do in that thing. But so yeah, I think Primacy tires pretty good. Now, whenever I was doing my research on bullet tires, whenever I was, getting those tires replaced a couple of years ago now, my consensus, which might be outdated now, and again, your deal could be kind of different, but like my consensus was Michelin's great if you don't mind paying the premium. It's a name brand, top brand tire, so you're going to pay for that. Now, I think it's, you're not just paying a name tax. I think it actually is, one of the top tires out there. But I think that the Continental is a slightly better deal in most applications. Again, I think every, like anything, there's certain products that are better than others within a, brand and under a brand umbrella. But typically the Continentals seem like they get pretty close, sometimes even slightly better in certain metrics, performance as the Michelin for a lower price tag in many cases. So I'd maybe look at a competing Continental tire and see that could kind of give you, again, a very premium tire, but maybe a little bit of savings there potentially. And there's other even cheaper tires. Like I know on my Legacy GT back in the day, I ran Sumitomo HTRZ 3s. And I think they have an all-season version of that tire too. I mean, it was a long time ago, but at least the one I had on my car, it was great. Tons of grip. Really nice savings over the Bridgestones. Bridgestones are one of the ones I typically always are an easy pass. They're overpriced and seem like they don't perform very well. Same thing for like Toyo tires. Kumo at least has a decent savings to it, but I'm not really a tire expert, but that's just my kind of off the cuff, quick little impressions. Tire Rack is a great source though. I do a lot of my research on Tire Rack whenever I am looking at tires. So, you go on there, they usually have ratings, they get a lot of reviews from, other, buyers of its tires and stuff. But they actually do their own like tests, instrumented tests on test tracks and put them through snow, put them through water and ice and all that kind of stuff. So that would be the best resource, and that's the resource that I trust for tires. And they are always just customer service is top notch and all that. Not a Tire Rack ad. I wish it was. Call me Tire Rack, but no, like I think they have a really good amount of info. So hopefully that'll kind of get you on the right path. But depending on the application, I think Primacies would be fine for sure. Let me see here. Okay, in following up, Raphael said they were standard on his TRD Camry. Really? I thought TRD Camry would have had something a little bit sportier. Yeah, I mean, in that case, yeah, you can get some real nice performance upgrades going to even just a performance all season. If you don't, I mean, you might lose a little bit of fuel economy, but it's not like you got a hybrid or anything. So like, yeah, you might be able to like do a slight little all season upgrade, and you're gonna really open up some more performance there for your Camry TRD. So anyway, hope that helps a little bit. Sorry if it's too much info, but just a quick little download on tires there. And Luke also said he had Michelin Primacy on his 98 Mercedes C230, and it was buttery smooth. Yeah, there are really, I mean, good grip, good smoothness. Yeah, and I mean, the Michelin Pilot Sports treated me really well on the Bullet. I love them on that. And I had, what did I have on the other Mustangs? I think none of those had the Michelins. They were always, what did they have? They were not as good. I can't remember. They had the Pirelli P0s typically came on the Mustangs, and that's a garbage tire. I'd also stay away from Pirelli. Too overpriced, usually not very competitive when you actually compare them to the others. Easy pass on Pirellis typically, and aside from maybe a few special supercars and stuff where they really tweak the tread. But anyway, let me see here. So Vishal, okay, we talked about the CRV tables. And Corvette says that when he started this morning at 100% charge, it was showing 401 miles of range. Wow, that's impressive. He must be pretty good with his efficiency there too. If the guess-o-meter, as many people call it, is telling him 401 miles, that's pretty good. I hope he was able to actually get something close to that. That'd be cool. And let me see with 705. Thanks for stopping by. And Tony says we still have our CRV table from our 97 CRV we had back in the day. Wow. Well, sounds like, based on Vishal's comment, sounds like you might have a collector's item there. See what that goes for on eBay if you if you're willing to part with it. You might be able to get a pretty penny for that thing. And Dadsif says, hey, Matt, I was wondering if increasing gas prices will affect the NA's North American car market. Could we see a shift of people going towards EVs and less towards the V8s? Is it a good time to buy a car? So I'll answer the last part because that's easier to answer first. It's not a terrible time to buy a car. It's just things are a little uncertain for the future. And I'm not even talking about, current events. It's more so the chip shortages that are likely coming and the RAM shortages due to the AI stuff that's been, even before the world went crazy in the past month there, like that was absolutely, the biggest thing pressuring car companies here. And it was looking like end of this year, early next year, there's going to be some issues with that. Now we have disrupted helium production in the Middle East. Helium is also required to produce these semiconductors. So because of the Iran stuff, we may actually be setting ourselves up for some chip challenges. Now, I don't know. It's probably not going to be as bad as the shortages we had, during the COVID era. But now we have the helium problem for now, which isn't getting any better, based on, everything that's going on in the Middle East. So we got that. Plus we got RAM shortages with AI. Now, some of these AI data centers are now getting pushed back. So maybe that will be negated because a lot of these communities are fighting these AI data centers, and good for them. I hope they all win and chase those idiots out of town. But, if those huge data centers continue to get built and don't get thwarted, then I think that could be something that does drive up car prices and also just really restricts supply of cars. End of this year, early next year was the timeline that I saw. So for that reason, if you are anticipating a need to buy a car in the next 6 to 12 months, Yeah, I'd probably go ahead and do it around now, especially if you're buying something that's undesirable, like if you are going for a V8 or if you're going for a gas guzzler, any giant vehicle or something like that. If you're going for something that isn't hot right now, yes, this is a good time, I would say, to buy. A lot of car companies are subsidizing the interest rates pretty heavily. So even though interest rates still aren't phenomenal, and I would typically say stay away until interest rates get lower, which is not happening anytime soon because now we're spiking inflation as a result of the Middle East stuff. So that's going to tell the Fed to not cut rates. So don't expect any reduction in interest rates. Probably this year. They said they may do one rate cut at some point this year, but again, because of the way things are going, I wouldn't hold your breath for that. So basically, the rates that you see now are probably going to be about as good as you're going to get all year. So if the car companies are willing to subsidize that, give you one of these promo rates, this could be actually a pretty good time to buy a car. Now, if you are shopping for an EV or a hybrid, um, I think EVs are still cheap enough that you're not going to get burned too much, but like hybrids right now, since a lot of them already kind of commanded a premium or people were, lining up for them, like, RAV4 hybrid, the new RAV4. People already were on a waiting list for that before, March and all the stuff that happened here in the past month. So, you know, like I don't think it's a good time to buy a RAV4. It's really hard to buy a RAV4 right now. I know Mr. 705, he's suffering in line waiting for one up there in Canada. It's tough right now. And this is why I think you're seeing a lot of surging EV sales even within Toyota. Like the BZ has shot up in its demand here. And I think it's a lot of people that are tired of waiting for a RAV4 and they're like, oh, and gas is going crazy anyway. You know what? Let's just go for an EV. But like the first part of your question there about, could we see people shift to EVs and get away from the gas guzzlers? That's already happening. Like especially used EVs. The new stuff is also spiking. It's going to take a little bit of time to see just how much, because there's also a lot of companies also cut back supply because they were bracing for the worst this year. So we'll see, because now they might try and put their foot on the gas and rush a bunch of more EVs onto the lots because people are actually wanting them again. But as far as like the hybrids and stuff, it's going to be, probably hard to get some of those because everyone is flocking to those. But like the used EVs, that's the big story for this year, I think, because again, all this stuff, average price point, 25 grand, half of the average new car price in America. That's music to a lot of people's ears. And then you tell them, it costs you $5 to $10 to do a full charge, assuming you drain a 300-mile battery every day. You're still paying $5 to $10 to charge it at your home. That kind of stuff right now when people are paying, big money to fill up, like that's, very attractive. So used EVs are, and this isn't just like hypothetical, like there's used dealers that said March was like a banner month for them. It's already happened. And that's people who are jumping the gun early, and then they didn't think, oh, well, this will get resolved in a week or two. Like they dove in and, early, mid, or late March to boost those March, monthly numbers, because there's a ton of people running out and buying these used EVs. So, maybe the used EVs being cheap won't last forever. And there's some that aren't cheap still. Like I just looked up ID Buzzes yesterday because my buddy was kind of kicking around like, oh, it'd be nice to maybe get an ID Buzz if they're cheap used. I'm like, oh, I wonder what they are going for used. ID Buzzes haven't budged below 40 yet. They started high, they were in the 60s to, I think just under 70, the all-wheel drive one. But even like a rear-wheel drive base Buzz is still like 42 for used ones. And you can probably honestly get one of those new for like, low 50s. So not a huge savings there. It's still 10 grand, but not a huge savings compared to these others where they're half off their new counterparts. But so it's not everything. But if you are flexible on the car and, you're not scared of even some slightly higher miles, because in an EV, it's, you're probably going to be mostly okay. A lot of these batteries, there's been Ioniq 5s with 300,000 plus miles on the original battery, no problem and stuff. So I think that, you're going to see a lot of demand for used EVs. Definitely, a curveball that no one saw coming. We thought this was going to be a dry year, myself included. I knew that EVs were going to rebound, but I thought they're going to rebound in 2027 when everyone's, leases, like myself, who leased the Lyriq last year. I thought, okay, we'll be in the market in 2027 for a new EV. And that's when you'll see that start to kind of come back. Everyone who ran out and bought before the tax credit ended last year. But now it's like, no, now you got people coming off the sidelines that are just feeling the pain from the gas prices. And so I think we're not going to really see much of a slowdown. We saw that little dip, and then, despite the EPA's best efforts to undermine EVs, the administration's handing us a gift here as far as EV popularity, because it's going to spike it even more. And the gas stuff's not going to be resolved quickly, even if cooler heads do prevail in the Middle East. It's depots that were bombed, it's refineries that were bombed, cooling towers, wells that got to get reopened up, and some of those can go bad after a while, get condensation. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to come back online. It's going to be years before they're back to normal operating. I think they told Belgium they're not going to get back to regular liquefied natural gas production and get back to the same export levels for like Belgium and for some of these other countries in Europe, smaller countries. They won't be back till 2030. So we're talking like the rest of the 2020s to recoup and get back to March 2026 prices. So that's why I think people are realizing this is not going to resolve fast. Might as well get an EV for the next couple of years at least, see what happens, and go from there. So yeah. Anyway, great question, Dad Steph. Absolutely, I think on a lot of people's minds right now though is, how can I get out of this, gas guzzler? And again, we saw this before in 2008. We saw it in 2022. Similar kind of stuff. And Danny says community college for me is about 10 to 15 minutes commute both ways. Doing community college for 2 years, then transferring to a 4-year. Nice. Well, that's the smart way to do it. You save yourself some good money there, and then you still got that nice shiny degree from the non-community college. I mean, community college is still great, even if you get a 4-year from there. But you get that more prestigious university or whatever. Definitely a smart way to go about it. So kudos to you for saving the money there. And he says commute to a 4-year can range from 25 minutes to a little over an hour. Nice. Well, that's not bad either then. And Michelle says he was set on Wolf Gray for the Sportage, but happened to see a Heritage Blue one and decided that was the one. Brother and I got to drive it home from the dealer while my parents followed in the Lexus. That's fun. And that's cool that, you got the blue. I love that blue color. So that's awesome. And Theodore says, hope you and your family are doing well. Thanks, Theodore. Hope you and your family are doing well too. Yeah, we're doing all right, aside from the little bit of sniffles and all that. But the one fun thing, we actually washed the Lyric by hand for the first time because we don't have a water line in our garage or in our driveway or anywhere close to like the driveway to actually wash our car by hand. So I've always been going to the spray and wash. It's like 10 minutes away every time I needed to wash a press car or wash our personal cars. And even that, it's a power washer, but you don't really get everything off unless you're actually hand washing. I love hand washing a car. I miss doing it. And we've been in this house now for 5 years. And ever since we moved, I haven't had the ability to hand wash a car. And I'm going to do a video review. I don't do product reviews like ever, as you guys probably well know. I'm going to do a review on this thing. I didn't know this was a thing, and I don't want to undermine the video, but there's these like battery powered power washers that don't hook up to a hose. There's a little like hose that they have, but it runs to a bucket, and then you pull water from the bucket electrically, and you have an electric power washer feeding out of the bucket. And so I don't need a water line. And I can just fill up the bucket. You got to do a couple of trips going back and forth, filling up, the bucket every once in a while. But like, I'm now able to power wash my car in my driveway and hand wash. And so it's crazy. Like my daughter is literally, almost 5. And for the first time, I was able to hand wash a car with her today. And that was really special to show her how to hand wash a car. And like, just getting to wash a car with her was really fun. So that was a nice little, memory making, highlight thing that I'm happy I was able to finally do and share that with her. So that was really fun. So, but yeah, family's doing well. Thanks for asking. And let me see here. So Vishal says, really impressed with how well the Sportage drives. Took it to dinner with friends one night, and even they really liked it. Nice. Yeah, Sportages are great. I know someone who has the pre-refresh, just regular gas Sportage, so and they love it. They got, as soon as that refresh or the new generation came out, they jumped right on it. They were super excited about it. It really, struck a nerve with them, and they wanted to, get one of the first ones, and they've been having a great time with it. And it's really well priced, great car. And yeah, glad everyone's impressed with it there. And Luke says, unfortunately, the bike has a leaky fuel line and it's not getting fixed until May 4th. Well, if it's fixed on May 4th, then you will actually have the force be with you on May 4th with being able to get back on the bike and have a blast. And Mitchell says, speaking of the junkyard tours, will Relics of the Rust Belt be returning, or has it gone across the scale and scrapped? No, I'm hoping to get back to doing them. I was planning on doing one in February, or as early March. And then I reached out to the junkyard, and they're like, it's still kind of icy on the ground here. We would probably say, to hold off a little while longer. And so I just said, okay, I'll hold off. But I haven't had the time to go out there. And also I like using the free gas in the press cars to go out there, because some of these junkyards are in Ohio. And I'd rather, do that instead of having to, pay for the gas myself. Because again, those junkyard videos do not make much right now. And so literally I'm keeping my costs almost at zero if I can help it. And so since I haven't had press cars for the past month or so here, that's also been a little bit of a hindrance. I've been wanting to go to the Pittsburgh one, though. I can just take the Fiat over and do that one. So I'm hoping to go back to that one soon. Maybe even here in this next week. We'll see what happens with how everything plays out. It might be the following week. But I want to get back there first, and then I'll be having press cars here once May starts up. So hopefully do maybe one of the Pittsburgh ones here mid to late April. And then, go and hit the usual ones in Ohio here in May and June. So I'm hoping to get back to it because I still really enjoy that, and I miss going to them because it's been a few months now. But definitely plan on getting back to that. I do have a very limited leash for those though too. Like I don't know what it is about YouTube. I thought like doing a completely new channel would give me a sampling of like what it's like if I'm not under the glass ceiling that this channel seems to be under. And I was like, okay, well, let's see how, totally fresh new channel does. And it's still like the same thing where like, at least me, I get to 5 to 10,000 views, and then it caps it. And even those, they've already started to kind of slightly decline. Again, we'll see how they do this year. But it's just like, I can't get stuff to grow on YouTube. Even like these live streams, these stay at, how many do we have right now? 52 people in here. Again, I love, all the familiar faces and just chatting with you guys. But YouTube, to have a thriving YouTube channel, you got to grow. And I'm just I'm not growing anything anymore. I'm just treading water here. And that's just, not sustainable. So I really got to find a way to bust through these glass ceilings and start to grow stuff. And if the junkyard stuff is just going to give me 5 to 10,000 views like everything else on this channel, then it's easier to just go and film car reviews at the local dealers here instead of going to, an hour and a half into Ohio and walking around all day. It's fun, but it's just from a time versus, productivity standpoint. Like if I can sit here in my office and do a rant and get the same amount of views, I'm going to do that. And just being smarter with my time usage. So we'll see. Absolutely. If you like those and anyone else who would enjoy that kind of stuff, please share it. Please try and help me grow that if you don't mind, because that's going to be the make or break for those, because I'm not going to invest a bunch of time into another channel that's just going to be flatline. So I'm going to do another strong push here this year. I'm going to, boost it on the socials a bunch and do a bunch of shorts and try and drum up interest and do my best to try and break it through on my own. But if, the algorithm's just not going to find the right audience for those videos, I'm going to have to pull the plug and send it to the scrapyard there. So we'll see. And I'm going to try and talk to pull apart and some others and see if there's, any more sponsor opportunity to, kind of make it a more worthwhile endeavor there. Some of the final little thing, and then I'll move off, and I'm curious your feedback on this, especially if you mentioned, but I think anyone who has watched those videos, I think the early feedback I got was a lot of people were like, oh, go to this junkyard next, go to that junkyard next. And I think that A lot of people were expecting that to be like the Barn Find Hunter and stuff like those series where you're always in a new place every single video. And I think maybe when people saw I was repeating junkyards, they lost interest. Like as if I guess maybe in other parts of the country, a junkyard doesn't change inventory and it's just like the old junkyards where it's just stuff that just sits and it's like a graveyard and that's it, and nothing ever changes. But like, these junkyards, I can show up every 6 weeks and it's completely fresh inventory, pretty much like all turned over, all brand new cars I've never seen before. So like, I don't know if there's a disconnect there with a lot of people are like, oh, he's just going back and looking at the same cars he saw 6 weeks ago. And it's like, they're all new. And so I don't know if there's a disconnect there because people seem like they were expecting me to go to new places. And like, I don't have the time to like tour the country and film every junkyard in America. Like that's not what this ever was going to be. It was going to be, let's see what the auto recyclers are getting before these things go to the crusher and document these cool cars before they, get eviscerated into nothing. That was kind of the driving factor, but I feel like there might be a disconnect with what people want to see and what I'm able to produce on that channel. And so if that's the case, then that could be why I kind of hit a wall there. And I mean, there's other junkyards I'm open to doing. Like I know someone recommended there's a junkyard in like Altoona, which is really no further than the Ohio one. So I could totally make a trip out to one of those. There's others around to freshen things up a little bit. But if like, people are still going to be bored if I'm not, traveling far and wide to go to a new junkyard every couple of weeks, like then that's unfortunately, I guess I'll just have to, pull the plug, but we'll see what happens. Gonna keep on feeling it out, keep on getting feedback in and see where it goes. Dozier says my 24 Prius averages 59 mpg over the past 11 months. Wow, that's impressive. So you are overperforming. That's either some very good driving on your part or the Prius or both, but that's impressive. Wow, I'm happy to hear that it's doing that well. That's great. I hope you're enjoying your Prius. I'm sure you probably are, especially these days with that kind of fuel economy. That's awesome. And Chad says, hey, Matt, I saw an advertisement for BYD trying to show off their building quality. They dropped a tree on its roof. There was no damage, and it made me think of you. Wow, really? I hadn't seen that. I'll have to check that out. You're right. That absolutely holds a lot of value in my mind after my experience. So that's cool. There's, I mean, even like BYD and all these others in China, they're also like doing a lot more robotic building and like using, because I think that was one of the things the Honda CEO said, because in this past week, he's also, Honda knows how to like really dog themselves more than any other company. Like Honda's like, it's crazy how they've been so down on themselves ever since they canceled those EVs. And their CEO said just again this week, he's like, we don't stand a chance. He literally said, we do not stand a chance against China with the auto industry. It's like, holy crap, man. Like someone give this guy a pep talk, please. Like, I mean, good grief, or have someone who believes in, the auto industry in there. Like, I'm just like, man, I can't believe the stuff this guy is saying. But, I mean, I could commend the humble nature of his mindset, but like, if they're just going to give up and just roll over, like, then what are you leading a company for? But anyway, apparently he toured one of the Chinese manufacturing plants and he's like, we can't keep up with this. They're using robots to build these things and they're, bringing out, a brand new car every like year and a half. It's like, we can't keep up with this rate of progress. And maybe they can't, and maybe there's no hope for them. Maybe he's absolutely right. He could absolutely be right. But like, I think, the BYD thing, in addition to like the quality, like that was one of the things he said. He said, like, we can't beat the Chinese on their quality because they use these robot assemblers that are going to be better than humans. And they're already doing that. And I know Hyundai's also working on this in Korea. So it's not just BYD, and this is again why it's good that companies like the Koreans are still trying to keep up with the Chinese at their own game. But that's one of the biggest things I know. Whenever Chinese cars come up, people are like, oh well, it's built in China, like as if that means it's gonna be bad quality, and that clearly is something BYD sees, which is why they're putting out this promo stuff to reinforce, hey, look, our cars are well built, but also you have robots doing more and more of that building, which is also kind of a 2-in-1 combo, because one, it improves the quality, and the consistency, but also it gets rid of the people who have the objections over the labor rates in China. And, people always saying it's, horrible conditions, which there's probably some merit there. Again, I don't know enough about that stuff to say for certain. I think there are, people that are, not being treated terribly. Otherwise China would be falling apart if everyone was, slave labor. It's not like that bad, but like, if you have robots, it's like, okay, well, now you don't have to worry about humans and how they're being treated if this is all being built by robots and it's high quality and it's also still cheap. Like, it's just, yeah, it's going to be a tsunami that hits the auto industry in America sooner or later, and you can legislate your way around it and you can try and keep them out as long as you possibly can. They'll find a way. Again, like they'll sell to Honda or somebody like that and, badge engineer, whatever they got to do. But like, it's going to be something where the American people are going to say, look, we could get $20,000 cars that are top notch and you're keeping them out of our hands. Eventually something's going to give. They will come into America. And when they do, again, it's going to be the Koreans that maybe put up a fight, GM maybe, and Ford. And everyone else, I think, is going to turn into, I think Toyota also is doing pretty good. Maybe Nissan, if they can crack their solid state fast enough. And then some of the, German luxury brands, I think, will be okay. But like any of the lower tier brands, they're all going to be rebadged Chinese stuff. Mark my words. I'm willing to put a stake in the ground now and say 2035, all of the lower brands or the brands that don't have their crap together now and aren't investing in the future and are just, short-sighted, it's all going to be rebadged Chinese stuff. That's absolutely where I see things going with that. But anyway, long tangents on other comments, but I'll have to check out that BYD video. Thanks for letting me know, Chad. Danny says, one of my friends says I should give the Bolt a name because her family names all their Subarus. I've decided to name the Bolt Stormy because of the slate gray paint. Nice. That's awesome. That's fun. And B. Mitchell says, by the way, speaking of the current car market, I was at a Ford dealer yesterday on the 25 F-150 Lobo hunt, and it was a ghost town. 3 board sales reps, a sub GM, and me, nobody else. Really? On a Saturday, too? That's very surprising. If it is really, hybrids that are super hot, Ford doesn't have anything right now, really. You got Maverick. That's it. So I guess there's the F-150 hybrid, but you're only getting like 23 mpg in that. It's not like you're really moving the needle a whole lot. But like, and this is why, Ford CEO, speaking of CEO comments here, he's been saying again a bunch in the past couple of weeks, they're planning on having everything be hybrid. He said the entire lineup, including Mustang, is going to be hybrid. I was thinking about doing a video on that, but apparently there's already been coverage about how a hybrid Mustang is coming probably in the next year or two. Apparently there's already prototypes out in Detroit running around with the hybrid powertrain in a Mustang. And it may actually be here before the end of the year, at least as far as a reveal. We'll see. But like, Ford's rushing it, but like right now they just don't have anything. And it's not great. Same with, even General Motors. Like, thankfully they at least have the robust EVs, but it's like, I'm surprised there's not more Mach-E interest at the Ford dealer. But, with Lightning's kind of drying up here slowly but surely for Ford, it's like, like a Mach-E to offer people that are, trying to get some relief from high gas prices, or Maverick hybrid. That's it, So it's interesting stuff, how these things, it's, they can only do so much. Again, long product plans, but like, man, this is why Toyota is very wise to have something for everybody. And the companies like the Koreans as well, Kia and them, gas, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and EVs, got them all. Take your pick. It's the perfect approach for right now, I think. Let me see. Danny says, I didn't tell my parents because it's only a me thing. Then again, my friend who has had basically every Gen Forester since the 2009 model year, one of the '09 Foresters was a red fully loaded XT, and it was named Ruby the Subi. That's fun. Then her dad's was bluesy because it had the light blue, almost pale blue Subaru did for the Foresters in '09. Nice. That's awesome. And Chad says, with depreciation, is there a price point that you recommend a Cybertruck? That comes down to your your willingness to drive a Cybertruck. I mean, you couldn't pay me to drive. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say you couldn't pay me. Everyone's got a price. But it'd be a very high price. You would have to pay me to drive a Cybertruck. Again, everyone feels differently. Not everyone hates Elon as much as I do, but like, yeah, Cybertruck, it is what it is. I mean, I'm sure for some people that it might, maybe make sense, especially again, there isn't any, F-150 Lightnings, really left. So maybe, but like I would probably drive almost anything else, including a Mitsubishi Mirage, before I'd be caught dead in a Cybertruck myself. So, but again, everyone's different. But no, for me, there is no price point that I would personally recommend it. Now, if I'm putting on my objective hat and you're able to separate Elon from Tesla and, you're just looking at them objectively, I don't even know what they're going for. I would say if it's cheaper than every other electric truck out there, then I guess, in that position, it's a value play. And so if you're just, again, coldly just looking at the numbers, if Cybertruck is, I don't even know what the other used ones are going for. Lightnings can't be expensive. But if it's cheaper than a used Lightning, cheaper than a used Silverado EV, Sierra EV, Rivian R1T, I mean, any of those, then okay, but I don't think it's actually that cheap anyway. I think it probably still is a little bit of a premium, especially because, the cheap ones, they just started selling new recently. And so all the used ones are going to be the hyper beasts or whatever the hell they call those things. And so like all that stuff is going to, I mean, even as undesirable as they are, they're not going to be that cheap because they started at such a high price point. It's going to take some time. They're not going to be 25 grand EVs. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think there's a good price point yet for a Cybertruck. And it's so polarizing. Even if you don't mind it, you just have to prepare for harassment because that is still a reality. And, people looking at you and wondering what the hell's wrong with you every time you get out of it. I mean, again, not everyone's going to feel that way. Obviously, there's still lots of people that have no problems with it, or maybe they'll give you a high five and, whatever. But like, it's a polarizing vehicle. Now, other people have had polarizing vehicles in the past, and it's some people it doesn't bother them. I actually talked to someone who had a Cybertruck briefly. He's the type who doesn't care about Elon and just likes Tesla because of the cars. And I chatted with him for a while. It was actually when I met him whenever I was doing the extra work on this TV show that I worked on last year, which I still am not allowed to really say too much about. I think you'll hear more about that show this year. We'll see. I thought there'd be info on it by now, but there isn't. But anyway, I was on this set last year and talking to one of the other extras, and he had a Model 3, went to a Cybertruck, and he was like, I was just tired of people flipping me off all the time. He's like, it just wasn't worth it. I didn't like it that much anyway, the truck. He's like, so I went back to a Model 3. And he's like, he just liked them, and it was fine. So it was kind of like, something he didn't mind. He tried it out, wasn't for him, didn't like the harassment, and dumped it. So it's you got to be a special kind of person to put up with that, and to have all the other baggage that comes with Cybertruck. So yeah, that's my latest download on Cybertruck there. But anyway, Danny says, okay, we talked about the Foresters there. And FC says the Camry LE is just under 30. You're right, but I think that's without destination. I think destination pushes it to 32. But if you don't include destination, then yeah, Camry is great too as far as hybrids goes. So much space, so much comfort, a lot of really good standard features in a brand new Camry. Yeah, that's a good one. I should have suggested as well. That would be absolutely another great choice. If you're looking for something good under 30 grand, that's a hybrid. And Danny, continuing on with the namings here, says their daughter, who's around the same age as me, 1 year younger, has her dad's old 2018 Forester XT named Gray. He either wanted a Miata or a WX because he wants a stick shift real bad. Nice. Well, it's awesome, though. Forester XT is a fun starter car. And Danny also says that the 18 Forester is fully loaded for the year. Subaru's kind of early eyesight system still. Oh, yeah, which their early eyesight was not great. My neighbors complain about it. They have a 2024 Forester last year before the new gen. which still had the old Subaru eyesight system. They're like, they just did a road trip. They're like, this thing just nags us constantly. I'm like, you should have asked me about it. They went and jumped for the Forester, and I was like, I could have told you that system is super annoying because I talked about it years ago when I had those Subarus. I'm like, yep, it's annoying. And then the other cars in that segment don't do that. Subaru is just like really being overreaching there in the first few years of eyesight, but hopefully it doesn't bother her too much there. He also says, "Oh, here's a thing for the name of the Subaru's next EV. Instead of calling it the Getaway, a missed opportunity to call the Tribeca. Much better name." Yeah, it would have been fun to see Tribeca come back. I agree. The Getaway thing, yeah, it's just I don't know. It's not terrible, and again, I'm glad that it's not a bunch of letters and numbers, but yeah, Getaway is an interesting one, especially for that kind of a vehicle. I don't know because like you're implying road trips, which anyone who's road tripping a lot and taking getaways in their getaway, like again, I've road tripped EVs, you can do it, but like, the people that are constantly road tripping are going to want gas, so it's kind of, you know, honestly, like that's why for the getaway, I was fully expecting them to take the Ascent name. I'm guessing they're just planning on keeping Ascent around and doing a second gen gas since they didn't want to, do a switcheroo there. But like how Toyota, especially when Toyota came out with Highlander and calling it Highlander, I was like, oh man, well yeah, Subaru's totally gonna just call this the Ascent, and who knows what'll happen with the gas one. But Ascent is also more of like a naturey name, so you would think that would have made more sense for the EV. Or they could have even, I don't know if Isuzu still owns the rights, they could have called it the Ascender, which Isuzu used on their rebadged version of the Trailblazer back in the day. But like, anything adjacent to Ascent or close, maybe it would have been too close. I don't know. But like, something along those lines. Just Getaway was kind of weird. Trail Seeker, I think, is great. Uncharted, but fine. But like Getaway, yeah, a little weird. Anyway, Theodore says, did you see the video with a minivan back seats crushed some water bottles? You had mentioned this some time back about the kid getting hurt. Yeah. I didn't see a test of a minivan, but I guess this is something a lot of probably people are testing with their power folding third rows is, does this actually stop when it's supposed to stop when it feels resistance? I haven't seen if there's others that are failing that test, but that's good work. I'm glad someone is testing that stuff and making sure that those others are safe, because you don't want to have that repeat of what happened with that kid, because that was very, 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 very tragic. And I'm glad that Hyundai did a really good fix on that too. That came out here, I think, in the past week. So the stop sale has been lifted on the Palisade and the Telluride that it also affected. But like this to me, maybe it's just the way the lawyers set it up, but the way that Hyundai fixed that issue shows me their dedication to this never happening again and how badly they feel about this, because I'm probably not even going to remember all the stuff, but like in addition to, they revised the logic for the algorithm for the sensors, so that the second it senses any slight resistance, it immediately stops and allows you to go back. So they fixed that, which was the only actual issue. So I mean, that if they would have just stopped, fixed it, done deal. But they went far further. In addition to that, they disabled one touch dropping the third row. So previously you could just touch it one, press it, and it was just do it all on its own, which is a nice convenience factor, honestly. But they disabled that. You now have to press it and hold. And the only way that it actually works is from the rear with the hatch open. Then you have to press it and keep holding it to drop that third row. They even had in the new Palisades an option to drop it from the front, and there was a button in the front to drop it from the driver's seat, which also you could envision some nice handy circumstances for that. They disabled that button. So now you have a useless button in the front of the Palisade because of how much they care about safety, that they're like, okay, you're not allowed to drop it from the driver's seat anymore. You're not allowed to drop it from the back unless the hatch is open and you're holding it down deliberately. And then they still have the logic of stopping if it feels something that's more sensitive than before. But like all these redundancies they built in, sure, they should have built this in a while back, and maybe these things were a little too over ambitious because they just were relying on that sensor to stop, and it clearly didn't stop. But like the fact they're like, okay, like we're pulling all these other potentially cool features because we want to keep people safe is really impressive to me. And like when I read that, I'm like, wow, like good on Hyundai. Like, you know, again, I'm not here to be a cheerleader, but like they do some really good stuff. They're the number one donor, I think, at least as far as car companies goes, for pediatric cancer research. And they, you know, really, the Hyundai Hope on Wheels is a great organization that really, I mean, I think they have a good heart is kind of what I, you know, my sense of, you know, Hyundai, and that just that recall and the way they fix that shows that when at least comes to safety stuff, they take it very seriously. Now, I still wish again they'd fix the ICCU issue properly so that you don't have, you know, the EVs, you know, popping their alternators for lack of a, you know, a better term. But, you know, I at least like when it comes to safety, I think they do very much take it seriously, and they made the right choice there, which is great to see. But anyway, let me see here. Decepticon says, "Yeah, yo, it's Matthew Moran. How's it going, man? And thanks for stopping by." Darnell says, "Good evening, Matt. Did you guys get spring weather yet? Hope you and the family are doing well. Thanks. Hope you're doing well too. Yeah, we've had some nice weather here. It was almost 80 degrees today. It's gonna be nice and warm here this week. We get, you know, plenty of April showers to bring about those May flowers, but yeah, having some good weather here, which is great to see. So, and Fuchs says, you may have just convinced me to open my mind to a used EV. Thanks, Matt. Absolutely happy to help. And yeah, let me know if there's anything more I can do. Again, even, you know, the one-on-one car consulting I do there through the website, if you want to, you know, have a chat, or, you know, again, happy to just, you know, exchange emails, stuff like that. If there's any guidance I can help you with, you know, beyond all the videos that are already out there and all that. But best of luck in the search and shopping around, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you with that. And Raphael says, for me, they were standard. Okay, we covered that about the tires. And sorry, I missed a couple other super chats here. I apologize. So I missed a bunch. I'm sorry, everyone. I don't know why YouTube's not letting me know about these. But anyway, Karma, thank you so much for the very generous super chat. I said, hey, Matt, it's Jake from this weekend. Just tuning in here. Some great car experiences. Thanks for stopping by, man. I appreciate that. Hope you're doing well. It's great chatting with you yesterday. And yeah, hope you're enjoying the channel here. Just met him yesterday, and he happened to recognize me. And like, oh yeah, I remember all those videos, and he enjoyed watching them. And so happy to see you here. Thanks for stopping by. And thank you again for the super chat. Sorry for the delay here. And Theodore, thank you also for a super chat. I really appreciate that. I don't see any comment there, but definitely keep an eye out for more of your comments here. And Confirmation, thanks so much for being a member for 7 months now. He says, hi, Matt, Charger EV at half off in some places. Can you get a lease deal based on that reduced price? Or is that a buy only price? Oh, you can absolutely, if it's a new or even a demo, you know, like a loaner kind of car or something, you can absolutely lease them. And yeah, you get that huge discount. And that's the way to do a really killer lease deal, is to get those giant discounts, and you can stack them. And especially if you stack them right and really hack the lease. Yeah, that's how people were getting Charger EVs for $200 a month for the leases. Because you know, Stellantis was offering $7,500, and this was back in the credit, you know, tax credit days. So tax credit $7,500 off. Stellantis was matching it with another $7,500. So you're already sitting there at, you know, 15 grand off. And then there's other regional deals. So some of them were, you know, regional was another $1,000 or $2,000. Some dealers were still adding even more on top of that, because at that point, even when you're talking about regional money, when you're talking about, you know, federal, and you're talking about corporate money, that doesn't come out of the dealer's pocket. So, you know, the dealer wasn't getting even burned with 15 grand or 16 or 17 grand off. So some of the dealers were sweetening the deal even more. You're like, all right, look, here's another 5 just to get this out of our face, you know. And this is how some people were getting these massive discounts. I don't know what it's like at this point, because I'm sure some of the stock has dwindled, just from, again, them giving these things away essentially. I will say that Charger EV insurance rates seem high from what I've heard. So definitely make sure that, you know, if you are shopping based on payment, that you get make sure you get an insurance quote from your insurer, and make sure that is doable. Because that's the one thing Charger EV also is a newer platform. I think there's still a few bugs maybe to work out of that. But if I didn't have to worry about the bugs, I almost had regret about not getting a Charger instead of the Fiat, because that wouldn't have been much more. You go for a Charger EV over the Fiat. But Fiat's way cheaper to insure. It's also much more reliable because the Fiat had been around since 2020 in Europe, and they, worked all the bugs out of it in Europe before it came here in 2024. So amazingly, the Fiat is probably more reliable than the Dodge, in my opinion. But yes, incredible deals still to be had, I think, on those. Now you don't have the $7,500 tax credit help, so probably not as good as they were, but you're still, with Charger EV getting a 3.4 seconds 0 to 60 times, 670 horsepower car. Probably, I'm not even gonna guess. It's definitely, more than $200 a month now, but probably, far, far less than what you'd be paying for a gas one, far less than you'd be paying for a Mustang, lease or something like that for Mustang GT. And again, you're getting a faster car with the Charger EV. So yeah, definitely a lot of good deals, I'm sure, to be had there. And Darnell, thank you so much for super chat. He says, Junkyard is fun in person, but not worth the squeeze for YouTube. Shorts with some real oddball car. So it's all you have, not worth driving all over for content. Yeah, so I think that may be the way it ends up going is, if I'm doing it for fun, that's one thing. But yeah, trying to make a business out of that might be hard. We'll see what happens. I'll keep on trying a little bit longer. Yeah, and while we're on that topic there, CB Mitchell says he concurs that it seems like it was repeating with revisiting the same yards, even if it constantly changes inventory. Might have to put more miles on the press cars. Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating because I'm showing new cars every time, but I guess it's just not good enough for people. And I can get the disconnect of oh, he's going to the same place again. So yeah, I wish there was a way to just like advertise the new cars. I mean, in the thumbnails I had like all the new cars there, but maybe it's just that's maybe part of the holdup. That's the flaw in my plan that's just not going to get resolved unless I'm constantly road tripping everywhere, which just not able to do that. So we'll see what happens, but maybe I can find some other local ones that wouldn't be terrible to do. Anyway, Chad, thank you so much for super chat. It says I hate Elon rap on it and you'll be fine. Yeah, that's been funny to see, is that there's been people that have been starting to put the I bought this before Elon was crazy bumper stickers and putting them on new Model 3s and Model Ys or even Cybertrucks. It's like, no, like by the time those came out, Elon had already firmly been in the crazy camp, in my opinion. At least he'd already made his choices as far as being an extra polarizing person. No, I don't buy that. If you're in a new Model 3 or Model Y, or a Cybertruck, you've made the conscious decision. You do not care about, what Elon does, and that doesn't bother you. And if that's the case, that's the case. But don't try and pretend like, oh no, or try and put that on there to be a shield. Like, it is what it is. You got to roll with it. Unfortunately, it's just the culture we're in right now, but it's been kind of funny. I've been seeing some of those pop up online being like brand new Model 3. And then you put this sticker on. It's like, nope, no one's buying that. Anyone who knows Teslas knows you bought that after. Doesn't work. But anyway, also Jaden Annalise Mayfield, thank you so much for a bunch of super chats here. I really appreciate that. And she says, yay, Matt, let's all support as best we can. Thank you so much for the support. It means a lot. And thank you so much. And she says, anyway, you could do any more track day videos. I'd love to do more track day content. That's hard to do just because I don't have a lot of opportunities. Most of my track time has been in press cars on media drives and doing those launches. And I like to do at least one a year just to I like scratching that itch of like, I've got driver training over, all the years of doing this. And I feel like I'm, not embarrassing on track, I guess is the credit I'll give myself. I enjoy track driving because I think I know a little bit of what I'm doing at this point. And so it is like one of those things where like driving on roads and on streets and having to obey speed limits and be stuck behind people, like I need to vent that ability every once in a while and exercise that muscle. And so I'm looking for a media drive where I can drive on track here this year. I know of one so far coming up that I'm not invited to, and it's kind of a pain to do. So I'm probably not going to do that, but I'm hoping there's one later this year. We'll see what happens. I don't know anything, but all I do know is that last year I rode on track in the Toyota Corolla GRMN that was camo wrapped, and that car seemed like it was pretty much done from at least the passenger seat going for a ride with the pro driver. I would assume that's coming out this year. And I would hope that they would do it, with a track drive component. I know nothing. I haven't heard anything from Toyota. I know nothing about what the fate of that car is. If it's even coming to America, I have no idea. But I'm hoping that maybe that could be one that later this year maybe I could do. But yeah, I'm hoping to do more of that. The problem with because now, especially since I don't have the Bullet anymore or anything, I have no way to go to a track and just drive something myself unless I'm renting it or I'm taking a press car. So it's really just waiting for one of those, trips where I can do a track thing. As far as, other dedicated, like I could film other people at tracks or I could film, things like that. But track stuff is also really challenging because a lot of people don't like watching it. It's unrelatable. Most people don't actually take their car to the track, even on enthusiast channels like this. There's a very small percentage of people that are actually doing track time and care about track performance. And a lot of those people, if they do care about that stuff, they're watching Savage Geese, who are testing stuff at the track every week. They're going out and watching Jason Camisa fly around, stuff like that. So a little bit hard, for me to do, but I enjoy doing that stuff, and it doesn't stop me. I still do try and, post track impressions of cars whenever I am on launches that include that. So I'm going to do hopefully some of that this year. We'll see, what the rest of the year brings. But as of right now, no plans to do any short-term track stuff. And also, we lost our local track, Pit Race. Speaking of these. The scourge of AI data centers, Pit Race was our local big, beautiful track that had just been remodeled here in the past few years. They even did a track expansion here in the past 10 years. So it had some great elevation change and some really awesome stuff. And it got sold for $50 million to an AI company to do a data center. And so the whole thing's going to be demolished. Beautiful, state-of-the-art complex, turned to rubble for $50 million for the owners to ride off into the sunset. And I mean, can you blame them? It's a $50 million paycheck, and you never have to. That's generational money if you play it right. So I mean that's you can't blame them in some cases, but in other cases, like they said, they were passionate about this track. They invested their heart and soul into it for so long, and then to just walk away from it, even if they're needing the money or not needing the money, I think they were pretty well off anyway, so they probably didn't need the money anyway. But like just what it did to the community. Like now, if you are a Pittsburgh enthusiast, you want to go to a track, you got to go to Mid-Ohio, several hours away. Lime Rock in Connecticut, I guess, several hours away. I guess there's Watkins Glen, maybe several hours away. You can go to what's the one in West Virginia? VIR is even like 6 or so hours away. Like everything is multiple hours away. So yeah, track stuff just got a lot harder around here, sadly, if you want to have actual circuit stuff. So yeah. And also, Jaden, thank you so much for another super chat. She says, I may or may not have an Audi A3 you can try, or know someone with a Mach 1. Well, if you know someone with a Mach 1, yeah, that would be certainly fun. The A3s are great too. I've enjoyed the A3s. I've had a couple of A3s reviewed in the past. They're great cars, and hope you're enjoying it there. Yeah, they're great. And also, Karma, thank you so much. Again, he says, no problem, dude. Keep doing what you love, bro. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for another super chat too. And yeah, hope you guys keep on enjoying the videos here. And thank you so much again for your support as well. All right, let me see here. Getting back to the other questions. Where were we here? Get some water. Let me see. Chad says, when a transmission has a max torque rating, does that mean that while shifting, or that the transmission can only handle that torque, period? I've noticed some cars are really close to the max reliability. So For transmissions, whenever they say they're rated for a certain torque figure, they are able to handle that torque figure, up to that torque figure, reliably. Now you can push them beyond that, but then the reliability and the warranty of that or whatever is what starts to just once you push things beyond what they're designed for, that's where you start having the problems. So you can absolutely run them, like for example the BMW manuals, like they're rated for 406 pound-feet of torque, and in all the M3, M2 manual, M4 manual, and all three of those, they do exactly 406 pound-feet of torque. And the M engineers from BMW have said it is rated for that. That is a max torque that will do. So they are running it to its capacity, but they've engineered it to be able to handle running at peak capacity like that. So it is safe, and I think they wouldn't have their warranty behind it if they didn't think it could handle that. Now, I mean, that's only 5-year, 50 or 60,000 mile powertrain warranty on the BMWs, I think. So it's only 60,000 miles. They got to worry about it. I don't foresee that being an issue down the road, though, because BMW typically makes pretty good transmissions when they do it. And also, I think that's still a ZF transmission, if I remember correctly, they use. I'm not sure. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about those. And you can push them beyond that. But again, then you're just rolling the dice on how much longer it can actually last. But yeah, it's a great question. Mr. 705 says, hypothetically, you can only choose one, your dream car at any price, or you get 1 million views on every video you post. 1 million views on every video I post. Just because if I had to choose my actual dream car, it wouldn't be huge money. Now, if I could just pick a car that I could just flip and sell, then that would be the way I would go, because then I would just, pick, I don't know, some crazy, a Bugatti Chiron or something, and then immediately sell it, and then just live off the interest the rest of my life. Because it's like once you get $3 to $5 million, you can basically just have like 100 grand in interest every year. You just live off and never touch the principal, and then I'm good. So then I could just actually do YouTube when I feel like it, or hop on a live for fun, instead of even if I'm still at the mercy of the algorithm, or I'm at the mercy of, I need to post that 1 million view video every video. I mean, that could add up quickly, but I would still be in the hamster wheel, at least for a while, until I built up enough money. 1 million views doesn't pay as much as it used to, but getting that built up to a point it would take longer to get the $2.5 million payday or whatever, just flipping a Chiron or something, versus putting out the videos there. But yeah, for right now, especially because of how burned out I am, I've been doing this a long time. It would be really nice to take a break if I could afford to. I just can't afford to. So it'd be really nice to just do the car sale there, ride off into the sunset for a little bit, come back when I feel like it, or when I have the energy, and just kind of do it for the fun of it again. I mean, I still have a lot of fun with this job, but it's a grind now, and that's because of YouTube. It's not because of the cars. It's not because of the people or because of the viewers. It's just the way YouTube's constructed this stuff now, and also competition. Because getting back to that, I mean, I used to be able to post 10, not even 10 years ago. I mean, like 7 or 8 years ago, I could post a single car review a week. It would get a bunch of views and would be enough to live off of, and then some, enough to afford a bullet, which I can't do anymore, all that kind of stuff. So it's changed. There's just a lot more competition, and that's just the nature of competing. If you're not at the top and you're not one of the freshest, most impressive things out there, you're gonna drop off, and that's just what I'm trying to work through. But that's a fun question, though. It'd be fun to have the dream car there, but for me right now, it's just like I just want to be able to provide for my family and get the things we need. The dream car will hopefully come someday, but right now it's just providing, being a good dad and a good husband and all that. But Tumming Mustard says, I'm a big hater of fake Raptor Ford grills, but I saw the King this week. I remember when they built the very capable Edge Raptor. Yeah, me neither. Someone put a Raptor grill on an Edge? Really? Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I can't believe they actually thought there was a market for that. but clearly they were right. There was a market for it, at least someone. Maybe they're just 3D printing them or something, but it's amazing that someone went to the trouble of making that, thinking there was a market. That sounds like a horrible business idea to make Raptor grills for Ford Edges, but clearly at least one person bought one. That's funny. And thanks for stopping by, Tumbling Mustard. And Luke says, I just saw a 24 WRX with 6,000 miles for 35.5. A brand new 26 Limited is 38. Why would anyone buy that used one? Yeah, I don't know. And the funny thing about that is that's kind of what WRXs used to be like for a long time. For a while, it was like the used market was so strong on those that I always wondered, like, why would anyone buy a used WRX? Because they were always so close for a new one. And so it's seeming like it's starting to get back to that. And it's yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's going to have to correct itself because those cars are going to sit because everyone's going to just go buy a brand new 26. So, yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out. But yeah, I mean, anyone that's smart, I mean, I've seen some other like 24 WRXs and, they're even with low miles, most of them are around like, 30 or so. Like that's kind of where you need to be is 30 and under for WRXs now because anything more than that, it's like just go buy a new one. For sure. And Mr. 705 says, unrelated to cars, but did you watch the Joe Rogan podcast with Bob Lazar a few weeks ago or his new movie S4? I did not. So I don't listen to Joe Rogan. But Bob Lazar is a name I'm familiar with because I do dabble in, the UFO, interest every once in a while. It's interesting. I heard a few takeaways from that podcast, and to me it's starting to ruin the credibility of Lazar personally. If you're a fan, no shade, but like he had some interesting stuff that he said in the past, but I think for me that I don't know if his stuff is credible anymore, the claims that he makes, because he hasn't been able to back stuff up again from the little bit. I mean, I spend like 5 minutes every so often. Like it's not like I'm doing any deep dives or anything. So don't have a great read on the situation, but just from some of the subreddits, and some of the comments I've picked up very quickly. I don't know. It seems like he's not able to back up some of the stuff sometimes. I don't know if that's true or not, but my only little thing is that is one thing I have actually stumbled across in the past few weeks here. So, but yeah. Hope you enjoyed the interview there, and maybe there was some interesting stuff I missed. But yeah, thanks for thanks for sharing there, Mr. 705. I'll have to look a little bit more into that when I have some time. But confirmation says used S550 bullets are sitting at 35. Really? I'm surprised they've come down that much. He says, why would I buy a new GT when the bullets are there, color notwithstanding? I mean, I've said this about all S550s. Any S550 doesn't even have to be the bullet. I mean, like any of them are a better deal than an S650. Now, S650 is starting to come down because I mean, some dealers are offering like 5 to 10 grand off S650. At that price point, then you are getting a new car, you're getting new car finance rates and all that kind of stuff. I think S650 value is now better than it ever has been, which is why they're starting to actually really pick up with the sales of S650. So I think S650 is, no thanks to Ford, but thanks to the dealers, I think is starting to get back to being an appealing option. But also, like, bullets and all these are also depreciating at the same time. And I appreciate all the hearts, everyone. But bullets are also starting to depreciate too. And all these others, just any 2018 to 2023 Mustang, phenomenal value per dollar, fun per dollar. And especially, I don't know, some of the casual people that are dumping V8s because they're tired of paying, the high gas prices and stuff right now. That might get even better on the used market. So, and also that could also help new GT pricing. If you walk into the dealer and say, look, I just filled up my whatever you're driving in with, and I just paid, $4.50 a gallon or whatever, but I really want this Mustang, and you try and have some leverage there. Maybe there's some better deals to be had right now, especially on the V8 stuff like that. Because, I mean, there's certain people that, they're not going to care. They're wealthy enough. They'll, fill it up happily. But there's some people, if you are driving a lot of miles, that adds up. And, not everyone's got giant savings accounts and huge margins. They can just, soak this stuff up. If you're one of those V8 drivers that is living closer to paycheck, and maybe, that was, one of the final straws. You're like, all right, well, I can't afford to fill this thing up anymore. Some of that is juicing the used market possibly and giving you some more supply there. Then that could possibly, lower that too. So I think, yeah, Mustangs in general, they're probably a really good buy right now. Again, as long as you can afford to fill them up and keep them juiced up there. But yeah, I think they're all phenomenal values right now. And also thank you again for the continued hearts and love there, everyone. I appreciate it. And also I see Karma, thank you so much for the super chats here as well. He says the Mach 1 may or may not be an automatic. That's all right. Automatics are fun too, but that Tremec manual though, that's really the big upgrade for the Mach 1, because you had that, much better transmission over the Bullet, in my opinion. And I did the manual Mach 1 review, a few years back, really loved it. But the 10 speed's great too, especially if you're someone who's, doing a lot of commuting and stop and go traffic, or if you're just unable to drive a manual for whatever reason, automatic is still, better than no Mach 1 at all. It's still a lot of fun for sure. And it's great they offer both transmissions there so everyone can have their fun. And also it says, if you want to use it on track, that would be my absolute pleasure. You're the GOAT. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And thank you for another super chat. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the offer. If there was a close track, I might take you up on that. I actually never tracked the Bullet. I think with that, it was my only car. And it was like, if I crash this, like, I don't have a way to like go film car reviews and live my life. And I think that's kind of the risky thing about tracking your only car. I mean, hopefully you drive safely and you never crash, but sometimes things happen. Someone else crashes, or you just get the bad luck of a tire blowout, or something goofy happening, and you're in a wall, and oftentimes insurance doesn't cover that either unless you get track day insurance. So it's just a little bit more of a risk there. But yeah, it would have been fun to take the Bullet on track. Mustangs, the Mach 1 is a lot better with the coolers and stuff. And the performance pack level 1 is pretty good too, but especially the Mach 1s with the handling pack, I think is that kind of gave you the performance pack level 2 kind of coolers. Because otherwise, I remember a lot of those S550 Mustangs really had a lot of issues with the rear diff overheating, and they'd kind of go into limp mode after a couple of laps. I don't recall all the hardware on the regular Mach 1, but I think it's just Bullet stuff, which is another reason it kind of held me back, because it was, you probably need to do some little bit of either that rear diff cooler or something like that just to kind of, improve trackability a little bit on those. But yeah, and if you ever want to go out to the track, though, definitely by all means go for it. It's a ton of fun. And, I highly recommend everyone do a high performance track day at some point. You can do high performance driver education, HPDE, they call it. You can get a bunch of tracks, and it makes you a much better driver, even just on the street, just knowing weight transfer, knowing what happens at the limit and how to react and build in those reflexes. You don't have to think about it. You just instinctively know how to catch a slide and things like that. A lot of people panic and get themselves into even more trouble. Like, those are really valuable things you can take from the track and just makes you better for the emergency stuff on the street. So, yeah, highly recommend going out and doing that. And especially if you can do it in someone else's car, or go to like those extreme experience events. Like, they're not the best. It's a little bit limiting and a very short, like, 2-lap kind of thing. You don't really get a great feel for the car or the track, but like just getting experience pushing cars on track and having a co-driver there giving you coaching and watching and giving you feedback in real time is extremely helpful too. That was what really transformed my track driving, is when I went to the Cadillac V Performance Driving Academy for 2 days. That was back in 2017 or 2018. I mean, the level of confidence I had in driving a car after those 2 days, just crazy, because they do so much to open up your peripherals as far as how much you're perceiving even when you're driving, and what you're keeping your eyes on is everything. I mean, there's just so many cool little things they teach you, and then it was back and forth where they had the performance data recorder and the CTSV and ATSV back in the day we had that we were using for that. And it's like, you saw what you did wrong on track. He said, okay, now go back out, don't do that again. And like, let's see how much time you shave off your lap time. And you go back out and you're like, yeah, that's where I needed to attack that corner. And this is the angle I needed to be at when I hit that apex. And once you slowly build these little things up, you make some real progress. And then, again, you learn weight transfer and you learn, how to do these things. It's so empowering. And it's absolutely, if you're into cars and you haven't done that, you're doing yourself a disservice. Try and do it someday, because it really just kind of blows your mind even more than you thought could be blown, as far as what's capable, what's a car is capable of, what your car is capable of, what you're capable of. It's really, really fun. And let me see here. Also, Lancelot, thanks so much for stopping by and for the very generous super chat. He says, good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I just got home from a friend's house. Well, hope you had a great time with your friends. Thanks so much for stopping by here and hanging out with us. And hope everything went well. Hope you're having a good week here, Lancelot, as well. And again, thank you so much for that generosity. And let me see here. All right. So where are we here? So B. Mitchell says, Michelin thumbs up, Pirelli thumbs down. Totally agree. Confirmation says, use S. Okay, we talked about that. Sorry. Let me see here. Darnell says he thinks it'll be a great time to buy a full-size truck in 1 to 3 months if anyone needs one for a second vehicle or long-term towing and home use. Absolutely. I totally agree. I think you're going to see a lot more truck, a lot more full-size SUV inventory, Suburbans, Tahoes, Expeditions. I think you're going to see it, those are going to start stacking up. The trade-ins are going to start stacking up. Also, what you're going to start seeing, and I actually just saw another headline about this today, vehicle repossessions. They already were at a higher level at the beginning of this year than they were even in the middle of the recession in 2008, 2009, already higher. And now you got high gas prices. It's going to hit those people the hardest, first before anybody else. So if any of those older trucks and some of the cheaper stuff, especially, you're going to see a lot of that coming in from the repo market. It's sad, but just from an economic standpoint, that segment, the gas guzzler stuff, is going to put people in those pain points sooner. Get that stuff repossessed. You're going to see a lot of those start coming into the market as well. And you're going to see, that's where you're going to start to see that is going to spike. I think I agree with you. It's going to spike first with those trucks and SUVs, and then you'll see it eventually in everything else, because repos are up, across all segments and all brands and stuff. But you're going to see that especially for those truck markets. Anyone who was buying and they were close to, the brink already, and then they ended up having to walk away from the loan or whatever reason. They just don't have the money because of the gas stuff now. I mean, that's, you're gonna see, I think, not a ton, but that's gonna certainly be a thing, I think. And Luke says, I only spent $63 for the month of March on gas in the Maverick Hybrid. I'm pretty pleased with that, as you should be. Yes, you are absolutely, you have the right car for the times, my friend. And good on you for going for the hybrid, even when gas was cheap. This is why it's good to just protect yourself and, wean off of, these fluctuating prices as best you can, and get independent of that stuff, because you never know when the next curveball is coming, and you protected yourself from it in advance. And I think that's what a lot of people, even that are going into the hybrids and plug-in hybrids and EVs, they're just like, they don't want that unpredictability. And sure, the electric market, as far as electricity rates, could certainly go up, and I'm sure it probably will, especially again with the AI data centers and all that stuff. But it's more consistent. It's it's transported via the grid, and and it's also a local thing. So aside from all of our energy generation for electricity, I mean, some of that comes from gas, but we generate it at least here. So you won't have to worry about power plants going down unless we come under attack or whatever. But as far as America is concerned, it's all localized, and it just gets transported without the need for trucks. Now, it goes straight through the grid, and so you're insulated better than fuel prices, that you're getting the fuel from other places. And yes, we produce some of our own, but we send it offshore to refine it in the Middle East and then bring it back, which is crazy. We have apparently our refineries here are set up to process rougher oil, but we have sweet oil that we can't refine ourselves. So we send our oil other places. We bring in other oil from other places and refine that. And like we're always like trading this oil, which is why we still have high gas prices, despite us being energy independent or whatever, according to certain sources. But like, so anyway, with the electric thing, you're a lot more insulated. So I think it's, one of the nice perks of, anything electrified, even if it's just the hybrids there. Anyway, Luke says, I never understood the hype in college degrees. My thermostat has 70 of them. That's a good one. And it also says the new Jeep Cherokee looks bigger in person than photos. I don't think I've actually seen one in person still yet, which is kind of crazy because they've been on sale for a while, but I haven't seen a single person in Pittsburgh with a new Cherokee. I'll be having one as a press vehicle here in a month and a half or so. So I'll see one eventually, but I thought for sure I'd see someone, because I've started to see new RAV4s and stuff, which is way harder to get a new RAV4 than a new Cherokee. And actually, Jeeps are quite popular around here. So I thought I'd see one by now. I have yet to see one. It's kind of crazy. So I'll have to see if I agree with you or not once I finally see one in person. But I mean, I believe it. That's, yeah, it's a Cherokee. They've always traditionally, been pretty big for these last couple of generations. So I'm glad that, it's going to be a nice large size to, compete well, hopefully with everything else out there. And Vishal is a family friend of ours, has a 24 Sportage plug-in hybrid. Excuse me. He's been very happy with it. He's partly the reason we've got one now. Well, I'm glad that that's treated them well too, and I'm sure again they're very, very happy with their ability to plug in if they actually do plug it in. Which a lot of plug-in hybrid owners don't actually plug in. That was Chrysler's justification partially for not refining or continuing the Pacifica plug-in hybrid. Their data showed that at least the Pacifica drivers, like very few of them actually plugged in their plug-in hybrid. So they were just dragging around a heavy battery that they weren't using, and they were just driving like a regular hybrid, which is, I guess that, not everyone, I guess, is educated on what their car can do and stuff, but like, it's kind of crazy to me. But I guess people just wanted a hybrid and they didn't mind, the fact they're dragging around this, hundreds of pounds of battery for no reason, with the plug-in hybrid they're needlessly having. But I hope that's why I'm hoping they pull the Cherokee platform and put that powertrain into the Pacifica for our next generation here as soon as possible, because I think that would be enough power. It's just like Sienna, it's like 245 horsepower or something. Throw that in there, and I think that would be the better way to do it, because if people aren't going to plug in their minivans anyway, then just give them the regular hybrid and then you have better efficiency. Let me see here. We've got 20 minutes left here too, so I'm going to try and be a little more concise so I'm not going on more tangents. But Chad says, I think it has to do with your feed. I used to love Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Then they never got suggested. I thought maybe they had stopped until I looked them up. Now I'm binging. Nice. Yeah, I think there's some of that too, with the junkyard stuff. Certainly I've hurt myself with the algorithm with that, because I've dropped out of people's recommendations just from my own doing of not posting in the past couple of months, so that's going to hurt me. I'm sure the first video on the rebound here of those is going to probably not be a great performer, but hopefully, it can again grow this year. We'll see what happens. Vishal says, did you see any rumors about Volkswagen bringing a truck to the US? Yes, I did hear about that this week. I don't know. There's a couple. I mean, a lot of people were just assuming that it's just going to end up being like an Atlas with a bed, which, could happen. And I also see Danny says the Amarok is very popular in Europe. It's a good competitor to the Ranger. They'd have to find a place to build Amarok here in the States. That would be kind of the challenge. Now there is the only credible thing, but they've said they were using it already for Atlas production, but they just announced this week that they did kill off ID4 for America. It's still continuing on in Europe. It's getting a refresh. It's getting improved because, they're still, buying EVs in better numbers over there. But ID4, because, again, there's no tax credit anymore. Surprise, surprise. Once you, nix those incentives, car companies are going to start shipping cars away and building them in other places once again. And the tariffs, if you're getting charged tariffs anyway, they're just going to go for the high volume stuff, and they're not going to care about, what gets built here. So instead of us being leaders building our own EVs, now we're going to ship them out to the other countries to build them again for us. But anyway, yeah, they're going to, use that ID4 factory to build more Atlases, and save themselves more on tariffs there. And I think Tiguan's eventually going to come over, I think they said, potentially, but it's mostly just going to be Atlas production. But if that factory is freeing up, maybe they also find some room in that factory to bring Amarok over, possibly, or maybe they do, something different. I think the other potential, I don't think they would do this because they're really buttering up Scout, but they do, they own Scout that's coming back here, in 20, it sounds like 2028 for deliveries now, for like early 2028. I think production, they say initial production will begin in 2027, but 2028 for deliveries. But that is a truck platform, and so they could take that truck platform and do something else for Volkswagen with it and make another competitor that's not scouty and not as retro and stuff, and just do something more modern on those same underpinnings. I just don't know, because it seems like they really want Scout to be a totally unique, separate thing, and maybe sharing platforms would hurt that. But also Volkswagen is hurting in general, and they don't have the luxury of being picky with where they get their platforms from and doing bespoke stuff for everything. It's just too expensive. So if they want to do an honest to goodness truck, I think either, try and bring Amarok over, but that still only gives you a midsize. I think with the Scout, you kind of have something more full size, and then they could actually try, but it's hard. I mean, the other thing about, everyone gets excited, like we heard about the Hyundai truck here coming, which is the midsize. I think midsize is the more ripe market, but when you're trying to go full size, it's hard. I mean, look at Toyota, biggest company in car company in the world, and look at how hard they try with Tundra, and they still can't beat the Americans at their own game. And it's, so if that's always been my pessimism with the truck market, is if Toyota can't beat them, for full size, just give up. And this is why Nissan did give up, and just, they tried with Titan. And I think for a little while there, they had a good thing going with Titan, but it just, they didn't stand a chance, because it's an impossible nut to crack, essentially. And so I think if Toyota can't do it, it can't beat a good full size truck that gets good sales numbers. No one can, unless you're Ford, GM, or Ram. So I don't think they should even bother trying for a full size at Volkswagen. So maybe do another midsize, but then the midsize segment's getting so congested, because now you're gonna have the Hyundai one before 2030. Frontier is still really strong and gaining market share. Ranger's still, doing really well. You still got Tacoma as the number one seller still. I mean, you got some stiff competition. Hyundai, I think they can do it. Volkswagen, I don't know. I'm rooting for them. I hope they can do something great, and Amarok is good for Europe. But Europe again has different demands than we do, and again they have that brand loyalty and that familiarity, because they've had those around there for a long time. As a new entry to a new market that doesn't even know what Amarok is, they've never heard that word in their life. It's gonna be a harder sell, and I think that's why. I don't know. I think for Volkswagen, they should stick to what they're good at and make people's cars, and they're doing that in Europe. But I think trying to do more of that here in the States would be a good way to just bring back affordability, because I think when you're trying to go up market and stuff, that's where it gets hard. And they have the great higher end brands for the up market. Go to cheap stuff. Like we should go back to you got Passat, you got Jetta, bring back Passats. Bring a smaller. I mean, they have the Volkswagen Taos, but I think they could even go a little bit smaller. And just even like the Polo. We should have the Polo over here. We should have the Golf didn't sell great, but I think Polo, if you bring it at a cheap price point, again, for people who just need, reliable new transportation, I think Polo could be good. And there's all these great little cheap EVs they're working on for Europe. I think bringing some of those over here, for people who do, all these people that said they were excited about these K cars. Well, they're in Europe, and you got these, small, cheap little EVs. Why don't we send them over? See how many of those people are actually serious about being excited about K cars and stuff. I think that could be, because especially as batteries get better and better, you're going to have more range. So I think Volkswagen needs to focus on the low end of the markets, segments, and not go up market. That's their strength. That's what they built their reputation on, especially here in America, was Beetles. And they said they don't want to go back to Beetle, which is a shame, because that's literally like, I think my Fiat 500e, they could do something just like that, cheap like that, and actually maybe, with the nostalgia of Beetle and stuff, could really, be a good car for the times going forward. So, but we'll see what they end up doing. But I think that's what I would do if I was steering the ship, is go down market, cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, because the best selling stuff is, for them, Atlas is a really good seller, but mostly because they do a really good base trim for the Atlas. So it's a great vehicle for people who want, the cheapest versions. They're not spending 50 grand on their 3-row crossover. You can get one of those things probably under 40, and it's a really good value. And I've said that in my Atlas review a couple of years ago. But all those, like Tiguan, gives you really good base equipment. I see a lot of base Tiguans running around. Like, I think going for the cheap Jettas, going for that kind of stuff, that is their strength. Stick to the cheap stuff. And I appreciate the hearts there. I guess some of you agree, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks that. Anyway, let me see here. Ellie Rowley says, what would you do to save Audi, which I work for? The new car sales are slim. Well, for me, it's hard for me to say, because I honestly think I think they're doing good things. And, I was on the A6 launch just a couple of months ago. And I talked to the product planner of North American Audi. And I think they're doing a great job. And I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I think it's one of those things. I think it's going to they're going to benefit from this gas crunch, because they got a lot of great electrified options there now, and they got a nice robust EV lineup and a bunch of things to pick from. But I think there's not much I can say to do for. I think the one thing that it just seems like the rumors are coming out here this week talking about an RS Q5. I think that was a huge missed opportunity for a long time, because that's money that they were just leaving on the table there. It's like their number one volume seller is the Q5, and yet everything else pretty much had an RS version at one point or another, except for the Q5. Huge missed opportunity there, especially because you had X3M right there, and Audi had no alternative. You had, the GLC 63, no alternative. Now it sounds like RS Q5 is going to be the plug-in hybrid thing from RS5. We'll see how many people are excited about that. But, at least they're finally doing that combo, because I think there is probably some demand for something like that. But aside from that one, sure, I'd love to save the 5-cylinder, but if it doesn't make sense economically, then it wouldn't be a good business decision to do that. So I really don't think there's much. I have a wish list. Sure, I'd love to see them do a new R8. I'd love to see a new TT, all these things that wouldn't help the bottom line at all and help their standing as a company. But I think that I think they've done things well. Like, I think A6 is very well done. I really enjoy it. No one watched that review, so it seems like it's, at least from my viewers, it's not resonating with people. I hope that it does, though, because A6 is really well done. I would certainly take it over an E-Class right now, this current generation E-Class. I think the quality is good. There's nothing that I could really do, in my opinion, that would radically improve Audi. I think they're on the right path. So I think my consensus with Audi is give them some time. They got these fresh products. The new Q3 is just launching now. All this, Ellie Riley, but just for everyone else, Q3 is going to be, I think, a really nice hit for them. I think A6 will catch on eventually if it hasn't already. And then again, they got all these EVs waiting in the wings. The second that people are like, all right, I'm done with gas, there you have it. They're all competitive. They're all good ranges. They're probably, pretty good deals as well as far as discounts and stuff right now. But I think Audi's in a good spot. I think, the only other way, to kind of juice numbers a little bit is make sure you focus more on the high end. I think A8s, they kind of let that one languish, and there's probably some healthy profit margins, even though it's low volume. I think, we've seen a new 7 Series, we've seen a new S-Class, and it's been crickets from Audi. Now, for people who think that's too much change and they don't like the hyper screens in the Mercedes, they don't like having, a 40-inch TV in the back of their 7 Series and, having all this other stuff. The Audi is a nice traditional sedan that everyone's able to understand and not feel overwhelmed with. That may turn out to be a real perk for them, but it just I don't know the sales numbers on A8 and how it's doing. All I know is that it's, kind of dwindled and they just kind of let it die on the vine. They have said a new one is coming. So I think that will again get fixed in time as well. But I think that's maybe the only misstep that I can see is they should have, kept those blank check buyers happier and kept churning out impressive new versions of the A8 maybe. But again, I just don't know economically on the back end if all that investment's going to make sense when you're selling, a few thousand cars a year of that model, So I don't know. I think that, yeah, I do think they have a good future though. I'm not worried about Audi. I think they are on the right path and they do some good stuff. So I love the way the new ones drive. I think the infotainment's pretty good now. And they're listening to feedback. Like people said they didn't like the capacitive touch buttons on the steering wheel, and now we're seeing this quick refresh to add back scroller wheels, physical scroller wheels on the steering wheel, real buttons again. They're learning and they're listening and they're reacting quickly. And that always to me is the biggest sign of like this car company is going to be okay. Same with Nissan. They're listening to feedback. Whenever companies are open to feedback and it's not just this echo chamber of everyone giving everyone high fives in the boardroom and everyone thinks they're, the bee's knees to keep this family friendly. That's where I'm those like Honda like is just they're going to do Honda and they don't want, they're not looking at what's going on in the industry. They're focused on themselves and like, they're not open to change and radical change and adapting quickly. Those are the companies I'm worried about. I'm worried about Honda and others. I'm not worried about the companies that are quickly reacting and saying, oh crap, we messed this up. Let's hurry up and fix this. As long as you're listening and you're improving and you're meeting customers and their needs, I think, those companies will be fine personally. And thank you again for the continued hearts there, everyone. I appreciate all that tonight. And all right, let's try and see if we can reach the end of the comments here before the end here, so I don't go a full half an hour over like I did last week. I don't mind. I'm having a good time. Hopefully you guys are too. Looks like we have most of the viewers still hanging around here, so I appreciate that. I didn't drive too many people away tonight. But Danny says hybrid Mustang, 2.3 EcoBoost with a hybrid system, maybe. Possibly. So there's a few fun ideas here. I won't go too in the weeds on this because I don't know how many people care about this, but yes, you could do 2.3 with a hybrid. But the more likely thing I think you're going to see, because they share so much with F-150 as far as powertrains, the V8, I think that I'm guessing, I don't know, but I'm guessing the hybrid power boost system from F-150 might fit in the Mustang. So, and I think there's a few people who might miss a 6-cylinder Mustang. I don't know. But, I think that could be a nice way to position hybrid is it would have less horsepower than the V8. So pecking order would still be in place. V8 still be the top dog, but you would have more torque than the V8. And I think that would kind of nicely slot it beneath the V8 without it being too much of a downgrade, but it'd be a nice upgrade over the EcoBoost still, which I think is an important base model to still have for that mass appeal. So I think Power Boost might be the motor. That's my guess. I know nothing, but if I had to put money on a motor, it would probably be that. But then there was another hybrid system someone discussed, and I can't remember what it was. I mean, you could also, the other one, they could resurrect the hybrid. It was the hybrid naturally aspirated V6 setup from the Ford Explorer. It was in the Explorer Hybrid while that briefly was around, and then now it's just in the Explorer Police Interceptor cop car. They still offer that with a hybrid. They could pull that hybrid system and put that into it. I don't know if that would be as exciting to them, though. I think they, knowing the way Ford likes to market things, My guess is it's going to be Power Boost, because they're not going to want to say it's a downgrade, or they're not going to want to say that it's a compromise. And Power Boost, they could use that same branding. Maybe they put a different Mustang spin on it, but Power Boost sounds exciting and puts a positive spin on it. And then it also gives you pretty comparable performance probably to the V8 with that efficiency for people who don't mind, going down to that. Others have, speculated maybe they do some kind of, hybrid V8, and that is also possible. I think the problem is clearance issues with the V8 there, and putting some kind of, electrified component into the front would probably be the only way to do that. So if it's, and someone actually, I think, kind of mentioned this not too long ago in one of my comments, but like if you do, like the same kind of stuff you see in like the Corvette E-Ray, and now in the, what is it called? The Grand Sport X, where you have an electric front axle, and then you have the hybrid system just running that, and then you have all-wheel drive. Then you have all-wheel drive with your Mustang, which would be great. And then you also could possibly package that with a V8 if it's, a very small motor. This is kind of a helper motor, and it's primarily a rear-wheel drive thing, and they kind of just copy Chevy's notes on E-Ray. You could maybe see something like that. The problem is it works easier in E-Ray because it's mid-engine. Whenever you have a front-engine car, you try and cram all this stuff plus a big motor in, it can probably be done, but is it going to be packaged right? Are you going to have, the right clearances and everything? It just might be kind of hard to do from an OEM standpoint. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but my money would be on the Power Boost motor. And Quiet Meadow says, yeah, I think the Cybertruck is cool, but I'm afraid of the haters. To get back to that very briefly, like anything, if you love it, and this goes for, questionable mods, this goes for the car you drive, whatever the case is, like, yes, you have more hate for Cybertruck than others, but like, it's your car at the end of the day. And, I've always said this about mods. Even if you think, oh, maybe someone will hate me for putting this exhaust on, or someone will hate me for doing these stripes or this color or this wrap, or, take your pick. Like, it's your car, and, whatever makes you happy, you should enjoy, and this is why I've never, wanted to bully people over the car they have. And this is why, like, I never condoned, like, people are vandalizing Teslas, a year and a half ago. Like, it's someone's baby, it's someone's pride and joy. Like, never disrespect that, regardless of how much you hate the car or the people behind the car or whatever the case is. Like, it's an innocent car, that, someone takes pride in and enjoys. You can disagree with them all you want. You can do death stares all you want, but like, once it crosses over into vandalism and stuff, then you've lost my support. You got to respect people's property for sure. And let me see. Hayden, thanks for stopping by. He says, just got back from a trip to Blacksburg. Spent some time with the guy that owns the Countach you filmed years and years ago for your channel. He still remembers you and filming the videos. Small world. That's awesome. Yeah. James is his name. Yeah. Awesome guy. I hope maybe if I ever get back down to Blacksburg, I can reconnect with him. But I'm curious. So does he still? We're talking the present tense. So I hope he still has the Countach. Does he still have the Miura? I'm curious. I guess you can send me a message or something. We can catch up without being on the live here. But I'm curious how he's doing. Hope he's doing well. And those videos, man. I still get views on those, the Countach ride in particular. The Miura ride, it's still hundreds of thousands of views, because again, back then it was easier to get those kinds of numbers. But the Countach, I think that's over 1.5 million views now. People really enjoyed watching that and still watch it, every day to this day. And it was so nice of him to give me those rides all those years ago, and especially the Miura. Countach is amazing for sure, but like Miura is like big money, like super rare, and not as many people get to experience a Miura as even Countach. And so it was so kind of him to and I got to check out his garage the one time there. He had a bunch of cool bikes and stuff too. I'm glad he's still out there enjoying the Countach, though. That makes me happy to hear. So thank you so much. Hope you're doing well too, Hayden. I think last time we talked, you had, I believe, a turbo Honda S2000 that you had offered, and I just never was able to get down to Blacksburg. I'm not sure where you're at or what's going on with your car situation now, but I'd still love to review that someday if you still have it. Definitely send me a message. It's just, yeah, I really do want to get back to Blacksburg because I want to bring my daughter down and show her all that stuff sooner rather than later, and go to a football game and all that. So hopefully, I don't know about this fall. We'll see what happens, but hopefully sometime in the next year or two, I'd like to try and make a trip down there. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate that. And thank you for the little update there. And I hope you had a good time hanging out with him too. That's awesome. You're able to connect with him. Also, sorry, I missed a couple other more things here coming in. Jaden, thank you so much for the super chat, saying, what kind of marketing do you do for the channel? So not a whole lot, just, the social stuff pretty much, just the, all the pages you see, Instagram, and Facebook and all that. So, but otherwise, I've never really put money into marketing. Partially because I just don't know what I'm doing with that stuff. I just never had the time and the money to play around with that. But that's something that, honestly though, and maybe this is a fault of mine, but when I look at, the others in this segment and, this car review space on YouTube, I don't see really any marketing efforts from any of them, honestly. Like, they just post and, excuse me, and that's enough. I mean, obviously it's not that easy for me. I wish it was, but it doesn't seem like there's a huge need for, like paid marketing or other ways of doing things. They post and people show up for their stuff. And unfortunately, it never was as many people, for me to make that, comfortable like it is for them. So, I mean, I think that's always my holdup is, any of these improvement things, like, I'm open to improving things if it's something that, I know has a good return on investment. But, for some of this stuff, it's just like taking a shot in the dark and hoping. And I've done some of that in the past. I've done a little bit of paid advertising in the past and tried a little bit of that whenever there's been promos that Google has done and stuff. And, try to dabble with some of these things, going to different platforms and stuff. And it's just, yeah, I'm not great at growing stuff when it comes to that. Certainly something I could use some help on. I am hopefully going to have some help here with bringing sponsors on, which is something that a lot of my competitors do a better job of. And I think I may have a solution to kind of help me get more sponsors and have more consistently sponsored videos. Because that's a lot of these. I mean, I don't want to speak for other people, so I won't get too into this. But I've had recent conversations with other big YouTubers that, like, sponsorship is extremely important, and that is that's bringing home the bacon, basically, because you can't live off the YouTube views anymore. It used to be the case you just can't anymore. And, channel-wide sponsorships, or just consistent every video or most videos having a sponsor, like, that's how a lot of my buddies are able to survive, the lower views and the lower ad rates now that we've had ever since, last April. And so, I think that's really going to be my focus in the short term. And I think there's a lot of promise there, and I'm working behind the scenes. And I think I have some meaningful improvements coming. I'm hoping you will actually start to see some more sponsored stuff on the channel pretty soon. So we'll see again how it plays out and just how much of that there is. But, when you look at these other channels, a lot of them have a lot of sponsors, and that's how they're doing okay and getting by. And I think I need to do more of that and focus on trying to do more of that, and make it more of a strong effort than what I have in the past. So I think that's the first line of attack for me to try and kind of improve things here, so I'm not living paycheck to paycheck trying to do everything I can with the views, because clearly the views are not going to cut it. So it's like, okay, well, how else can I boost revenue if that's not going to improve? So that's kind of the main thing I'm working on in the current moment here. But all right, we're already over the 2-hour mark. So I'm going to switch here to just doing the last few super chats. I'll do member questions, and then we will sign off here, and then hopefully Wednesday, we'll be able to chat more. And also anyone else, always feel free to send me a message. If you have any car questions, also do the car consulting on my website and all that as well. We can chat more there. But I see Jordan, thank you for being a member for 30 months now. He says Trump announced bringing small cars to America a few months ago. Was that a lie? Is the eco mode in the 25 gas Maverick a joke? Never getting over 23 MP or 23 mile average. Eco modes don't do a whole lot. It just dulls your throttle response pretty much. That's all it does. So it's really only for people that are more aggressive with their throttle inputs where it'll smooth that over for you. If you're already a smooth accelerator as it is, and you're already kind of having an eco-minded driving style, it's not going to do a whole lot for you. As far as the K cars, I talked about this. I did a rant and I said K cars aren't coming to America. Like, that was BS. I said that back, a day after he made that announcement. Now, even I could still be wrong, and they may, car companies are not talking about this whatsoever. But maybe secretly they're all frantically working on bringing K cars over because Trump said that should be a thing. Heavy sarcasm there. But, even if they did actually want to do that, it just takes time. It does take time to bring cars to market, especially when you're blindsided with something. It's usually 4 to 5 years to plan out a car and bring it to market. Now, with some of these existing K cars, it's not quite that long, but you do have to adapt them for American safety standards. Crash test standards are going to require a lot of, reinforcements, because all these K cars, if you bring them over and put them through our crash test, they're going to fail terribly. So, you're going to have to beef that stuff up so that they're roadworthy in America and are able to, at least fare a little bit better against the zillions of pickup trucks we have on our roads here compared to the tiny little trucks that are in Japan most of the time. So you got to do safety stuff. You got to do, just converting them all to left-hand drive. You have to, there's all these steps that don't happen overnight. So I don't remember how long ago it was when he said that. It was back in the fall, right? So, I would still at least give car companies a year or two, but no one's working on that. That was something that's, even Jim Farley was standing there and, grinning, through his teeth while he's, in the Oval Office. And then, the thing with K cars is they tried with subcompacts. And subcompacts are even larger in many cases, and even that wasn't compelling enough. People didn't buy them. The Mitsubishi Mirage went away. That was essentially a K car. It was a little bit bigger, but like pretty close. And that went away because people weren't buying them anymore. My Fiat 500e that I have in the garage, I own the closest thing to a K car in America right now. There's plenty of them on lots. They're heavily discounted, 10 grand plus off. You can get one, like I got mine for $130 a month. You can probably get them, not quite that cheap now because of the tax credit being gone, but you can easily get one probably under $200 a month still. No one's running out and buying Fiat 500Es. I'm guessing a lot of these people want gas, small cars like that. But again, the subcompacts like the Mirage proved there's limited appeal there. Nissan Versa just went away because sales weren't strong enough. Versa's not going away everywhere. It's still there. There's a brand new one that's got rolled out for Mexico. It's being sent, I think, up to Canada as well. The rest of the world's getting this stuff. And then that's the other problem with these cheap things. If you do ship, you got to ship them in, and then you got to pay tariffs because of the tariff stuff. If you want to build them here, are you going to waste your very valuable U.S. Manufacturing capability to build cars that have no profit margin because you're selling it for 15 grand? Like, there's not a lot of margin there. Or would you rather churn out, bloated pickup trucks with giant margins and churn them out by the millions? Like, it's an easy business choice. Like, as much as people might say or claim they want K cars, the buyer data shows that they did not want cheap small cars. If they did, they would have bought all the ones we had, and all those have dried up because people didn't buy them. So at the end of the day, people say one thing and then they do another. It's the same as the manual lovers. All these people say, oh, bring the manuals back, but then you have no one buying them, and people aren't, these are all used car buyers. Used car buyers don't matter to car companies because they're selling new cars. And if you're not a new car buyer, they don't care about what you're doing. You being a second or third owner, picking it up for 10 grand in 10 years, that doesn't help them. Sure, they make a little money off of servicing the car for you if you take it to the dealer or buy, OEM parts, but that's it. They don't care about used car sales pretty much. So, there's no angle where K cars make sense economically. And just because the president waves his pen and decrees it does not, mean we're going to see the market care, both on the consumer side and the manufacturer side. And Jaden, thank you for the other super chat there. And Lancelot, thank you for another super chat. He says, I saw a Ford Super Duty the other day that was lowered with Brodozer wheels on it. Is it for me? No, but still wicked cool. Yeah, you gotta respect the money they put in. I mean, those Brodozer conversions are expensive. And yeah, certainly would be the last thing I would do if I had a truck. But again, they enjoy them. And honestly, the lowered ones, I have less of an issue with that than the super raised stuff, because the raised stuff is actually a safety issue, because anyone runs into that thing, you're getting a bumper beam to the face, versus at least the lowered stuff, is safer in my opinion, for the other road users out there. But yeah, it's interesting all the mods people do, but again, that's the freedom and the fun of car customization. And Jaden, thank you for the other super chats here, all the generosity from everyone tonight. Especially thank you so much, Jaden, for all of that. And also another super chat, they say rebrand, social media promotion to drive views. Yeah, I mean, there's been some other ideas that have been floated in the past of like you do a car giveaway, stuff like that, which is very popular and actually can make a little bit of money. It's kind of a gamble though sometimes, especially if your viewers are not used to always buying raffle tickets for stuff. Rebrand, I did already. So the channel used to be called Super Dorks Fan, and then in 2017 I switched over to Matt Moran Motoring, and that opened up a lot more opportunities and allowed car companies and viewers to not think that I was biased to only like WRXs. And so that very much helped the channel, and that boosted the channel. The second I changed the channel name, 2017, 2018, 2019 were my best years ever on this channel. And then 2020 kind of hit me hard, and hit everyone hard, but the channel just never got back to those pre-2020 numbers, and the world changed. Affordability went down the toilet, starting then. A lot of stuff just, life got more challenging, and people, and also I think a lot of it too is just natural change in viewership, and just TikTok wasn't a thing before 2020, and TikTok stole a huge amount of YouTube views away. A lot of us also have grown up now. When I was doing these videos, a lot of you were the same age as me. We're all 20 somethings. We got a bunch of time. We don't have families. We're playing around with fun cars and watching videos of fun cars, and we have more time to kill, and all this. And so now a lot of you guys also have kids or significant others or family members to take care of, or whatever the case is. You don't have time to be sitting around like you did when you were in college, or you were a single bachelor just kicking it and watching car videos on a Saturday night. Now you got other stuff you got to do, whatever the case is. There's a lot of those types of things that just, life has changed, and I've seen my viewer demographics get older with me, and I think that's just natural. People like watching people around their same age in many cases, and so I think that's why the large chunk of my audience is within 10 years, give or take, of me being 35 here. And so I think that's that's just also kind of the nature of that viewership. So there's a lot of things I could go on all night. I won't keep chatting about it, but yeah, I appreciate all the thoughts, and happy to chat more about this in the future. If you're interested, Jaden, always happy to chat with anyone who's looking to help or interested in in the channel. I'm always happy to kind of spitball and learn new perspectives, because I think that's extremely valuable, and getting out of my own head is very much probably part of the solution. So definitely something I'd love to chat more about here in the future. Let me see. So yeah, we'll go to the super chats here for the last few, and I apologize to anyone's comments I don't get to here, but just give those members the priority here at the end, and then we will sign off. So Theodore says, did you hear about the rumor of the Camaro coming back as 4 doors? Yeah, so I did the rant obviously about the Camaro here this week, but as far as the 4-door part in particular, that kind of makes sense considering the CT5 that's gonna be on the same platform as 4-door, as is the Buick, so, but also in the past, Camaro was 2-door, and the CT5 and even the CTS, those were all alpha vehicles, and always Camaro was a 2-door. So I don't think it has to be. I think they could also do the Dodge thing and do a 2 and a 4-door, and we could maybe be hearing conflicting rumors because maybe both of them are true, maybe neither of them are. I don't know, but I think it would make sense to at least offer a 4-door variant. And sure, you're gonna piss some people off the same way Dodge did, 20 years ago when Charger came out or whatever. But I think that clearly, Dodge made the right move and Charger's now super popular. And the anger of Charger becoming a 4-door car, that's ancient history now, and most people are very happy about it. So I think it'll be fine if they go with a 4-door version. Yeah, I think as long as they execute it well and do it right, which I don't think you could screw up Alpha platform. Like, that's such a good platform already. Even if they didn't evolve it and they just left it as it is, slapping a Camaro 4-door body on top of essentially a CT5 sounds fantastic to me. That'd be a phenomenal car because CT5 is a phenomenal car. And Michelle says, would love to see an acceleration reaction of you in a plaid. That'd be epic. I've still never felt G-forces like that in a car after going in it. Absolutely insane. I bet. Yeah, I mean, the closest I've probably gotten was, I did the P100S, but, I think doing the Audi RS e-tron GT, one of the fastest, I think that was low 2 seconds for that. Yeah, I mean, there's been some really fast ones for sure. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty more to review here in the future as they just keep getting faster and faster. But yeah, it'd be fun to try someday. Let me see. Jordan says, "Hey man, possible Ford Mustang hybrid testing, one step closer to the lithium. Been screaming for that since the CES in 2019." Yeah. So I mean, I think the hybrid is a good step. Now, Jim Farley has claimed, "Oh, we're never going to get an electric 2-door Mustang." So I still, think that's probably not happening, at least until he's not CEO at Ford anymore, or maybe he has a change of heart someday. We'll see. But I think the hybrid will be, a good step. They've been talking about doing a hybrid Mustang since S550, and they never made it happen with that. But I think it'll finally happen here soon. And Theodore says, "I know you're a very busy man, but a good movie to watch is Ford versus Ferrari, especially when the speakers are loud." I know. I still got to get around to watching that one someday. And Jordan says, "I've got a 2017, or if I got a 17 Cadillac ELR, is there some type of warranty that I could buy that would cover all the electric components, engine, etc.?" Yeah, there certainly are. You just have to make sure you don't go for one of the scammy ones, because there's a lot of scammy warranties out there too. So you just got to make sure that you're getting a quality one, whether you buy it. Typically, I'd like to buy that stuff through the dealer or through a large used, like a CarMax, kind of thing, or something like that, where, they their warranty is worth the paper it's printed on. So something like that, I would certainly say would be, yeah, a good thing to do. Now, I don't recall. So if you're getting a 17 ELR, you're going to already have, I think, a 10 or a 15-year battery warranty. And the gas components, I don't think you really need to worry about those too much. So, and the battery should honestly be fine, because the volts, they go much longer than what they're rated for, as far as warranty goes. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, as long as the battery health is good and the car has been maintained well. I think an ELR, especially a 17, not that old, I think you'll probably be okay for a while. Again, depends on the car, but that's a car I wouldn't worry too much about an extended warranty on. There might be some components to be a little tricky, but again, since it was Volt stuff and that was pretty, well figured out with the first gen Volt, second gen Volt seem to be pretty reliable from what I see. Even first gen's not bad, honestly. So I wouldn't be worried, but I need to do more research, to say for sure. And Marco says, "How's it going, y'all? Glad to be able to listen in this time. It's been a while. Thanks for stopping by." He says, "Too many excuses not to tune in. What's new? I've been out of the scene for a while." Well, a whole lot of stuff. Definitely, if you haven't been able to check out any of the videos here recently, definitely good place to start there. A lot of cool, stuff I've been covering in the rants. Some new reveals here at the New York Auto Show here this month. A bunch of cool stuff. But you see, he also says, "I'll see what these dealers are thinking. There's no way the new WRX should be anywhere near 30 grand, even the special edition ones." Yeah, I mean, WRX is great, especially with the inflation and stuff. I think that it's a good buy under 40 grand. I think once you're at 40 grand, then, I'd push you to GR Corolla. Sorry, I had to say it at least once tonight before we go. I'd go GR Corolla or, one of the other ones. But, under 40, I think they're a solid buy. If you want to do mods and big power, then WRX is also even better than GR Corolla and some of the others. But that's kind of where the 30 range is the sweet spot for me. And basically, I don't know what the dealers are thinking there. Yeah. And let me see here. So, all right. Vishal says, again, sorry to be skipping everyone else, but just so we can wrap up here. Vishal says Volkswagen's also doing 0% at 60 months on Atlas right now. Pretty solid deal. Wow, that's great. Yeah, so that'll certainly help the Atlas numbers there, I'm sure. But yeah, a lot of companies doing that right now, which is a great thing to capitalize on if you can, get those low rates while you can get them. And Chad says, I have to go. I work early, but thanks for doing these. Absolutely. Thank you so much for hanging in here. And I see Marco says, it's such a nice change to hear your normal voice. Actually, the past few minutes, I'm glad you're still taking it a moment at a time. Well, thanks for stopping by and for your support, Marco. I really appreciate it. And he says, Doug has a great video on the ELR. Wink. Yeah, I'm sure he probably does. I'd like to review one someday too. We'll see. But anyway, yeah, thank you all so much. Again, apologies for everyone else's comments that I had to skip over here at the end. But I will be back on Wednesday for another 1 hour live, and next Sunday for another 2 hour. If you want to ask those questions and comments, then I'll be more than happy to chat then as well. But anyway, yeah, thank you all so much for hanging out here. Have a good, happy, healthy, safe week here, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday. And stay tuned for some more good stuff. I'm hoping to do some cool videos here this week on the channel. So fingers crossed it all works out. But yeah, look forward to some fun stuff here, I think. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this one. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.